Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Insurance Untangled Live Breaking Boundaries in 2026. Your head start on navigating the challenges, changes, and opportunities waiting for dental practices in the coming year. I'm your host, Dan Adisha, and today's summit is built to prepare you for what's coming, from tougher insurance policies and to financial pressures to the technology that's reshaping how practices operate. We have an incredible lineup of experts joining us across insurance, operations, business leadership, and marketing. Between our live Q&A panels, our insurance presentation, and our business strategy discussion, you'll walk away with practical, immediately usable guidance plus 3 CE credits. So stay tuned until the very end, where you will be able to fill up a form and get your 3 CE credits. With that being said, let's take a look at what's ahead. So, as we have started the session at 12, we will be beginning the insurance panel at 12:05. That'll be done with Tessina Bullock, Madalena V, and Angie Catmull. And at 1:25, we will have the insurance presentation. I'm sorry, at 1:05, we will have the insurance presentation by Benjamin Tweeney. And then from 1:25 till 1:45, we'll have the marketing Q&A section with Narayan Arul Raja. Then we'll go in for a short 10-minute break at around 1:45 to 1:55 p.m. And then we will dive into the business panel with Alvin Utai, Curtis Brimley, and Wendy Reifer. Then we will wrap up the session at 2:55, and then we'll call it a day. So that is the agenda for this session here. And with that being said, let's get to know our insurance panel panelists. So do the impossible, negotiate with the non-negotiable is the topic of discussion here today. And to discuss that very topic, we have 3 of the finest panelists for it. And first up, we have Tessina Bullock. Some people learn insurance, others go to war with it and win. Tessina entered the dentistry with a fighter's instinct and ended up becoming the one person insurance companies don't want to hear from. She's pushed commissioners to investigate, exposed illegal practices, and built systems that give power back to dental teams. Her mission today is simple: make sure practices get paid what they're owed every time. Tessina, a wonderful pleasure to have you here this afternoon.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Then we have Madalena V. Every practice that has that one person who seems to know the system inside out. Madalena has been that person for over 40 years, and she's led teams, managed schedules, trained staff, and mastered the delicate mix of accuracy and efficiency that keeps a practice profitable. Her specialty, oh, apologies on this. Yeah. Her specialty isn't just billing, it's creating order, clarity, and confidence in a system that often feels chaotic. So, Madalena, with that being said, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here. And you are muted. I'll just ask you to unmute real quickly. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah. So now, next up we have Angie Catmull. And Angie is a person who, for nearly 4 decades, has made the complex feel simple. She's the guy dental teams call when insurance becomes tangled, confusing, or overwhelming. Angie has a gift for turning uncertainty into confidence and empowering practices to work effectively so that they can serve patients without fearing or guesswork. She brings clarity exactly where teams need it most. Angie, thank you very much for being here this afternoon with us.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Fantastic. All right. With that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quickly over here. And yeah, before we dive in, we would like to also know our audience members. So please find the chat box below and let us know where you're tuning in from and what's one word that describes your mindset for 2026. We'll take 30 seconds to get to know you. Here we go. Let's see a rainfall of answers here in the chat box and we'll warm it up. We got Lynn Rowland from Baltimore. Welcome, Lynn. Okay, we got Angela from SC. Want to know the new changes. Okay, want to know the new changes. That's great. We got Frisco, Texas in the building. Feeling hopeful for 2026. That's great. Being hopeful is, the way to go forward. And hopefully, okay, we got Tara from Arizona, and Tara is looking forward to higher reimbursements. Yeah. Okay, there we go. We're getting a lot of engagement here. Bonita. Welcome, everyone. So really appreciate y'all. Okay. Yeah. I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed here and I love it. That's what we would like to see and love to see. And I hope we'll be able to, answer your questions and address all these things that you're looking forward to in 2026. So just as you have begun engaging the chat box, keep it going, keep it rolling, comment as we go along, engage with the panelists, ask questions, dive deeper. You're more than welcome to. We are all here for the same cause. Now, with that being said, we'll be diving right into the Q&A. And thank you, everyone who joined in on the chat. Really appreciate y'all. So my first question goes to you, Tessina. Are you ready?
Let me get off mute. Yes, I'm ready.
Fantastic. So when an insurance company insists their fees are non-negotiable, what strategies have you found most effective to still create leverage for your practice?
Yeah, that's a really big question. We're hearing in from a lot of offices that they're trying to do their own negotiations and getting a lot of pushback, just saying, we don't negotiate the fees. And all insurance companies negotiate, whether they advertise it or not. So that's something to really pay attention to. Finding your leverage, finding your strategy is key. There are services you can use for this, but there are some things that you can do even with getting a service involved. If you're doing some of these things ahead of time, that service will be more successful as well. That's going to be making sure that the doctor is involved, right? Not just the front office, but making sure the doctor's involved, because the contract is between the doctor and the insurance company. And then knowing your area, how many providers are in network in that area, what are the going rates in that area, what are the specialties in that area? So you may have leverage if you are a specialist in your pedo office, and maybe you're the only pedo office for how many miles, right? That is leverage that you can use to negotiate those fees. And then my favorite is go out of network. You don't have to stay in network with these insurance companies, and that is your leverage. They need us more than you need them. If you are unhappy with your reimbursement rates and they're saying they don't negotiate, go ahead and leave. Don't be afraid. Leave that network, and guess what? Now you have leverage, because that insurance company is saying, oh no, now we don't have enough providers to show in the area. We're not relevant. Some of them pay full office fees when you're out of network. So it actually costs them more money. So yeah, a big leverage is to be out of network first. Then they'll definitely negotiate.
Wow, that's pretty big leap of faith. Are there any practical advice for owners who might be thinking about this option but are a bit fearful about going out of network completely?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of research that should be done before you make that decision. Never am I saying jump into it hastily. There's some things that we can look at. Again, a service can help you. I can help with that. Ben can help with that. There's a lot of services that there's some research to do, some reports, see how many patients you have on that plan, evaluate if it is benefiting your practice or not, and investigate what those out of network benefits look like as well. A lot of times when we run a spreadsheet and you check those out of network benefits versus the in network benefits, and you'll see that they don't really change. And that's a really good sign for you that that's a good, safe plan that you could move away from.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much for that, Tessina. Yeah. Next up, we got Madalena. Madalena, are you there?
Sorry,
Are you
I
on
had
mute?
to turn it off.
Yeah,
Yes, I
there we
am.
go. Fantastic. So,
Hi.
Madalena, okay. What are the main factors that may lead to a dental claim denial?
Well, we've learned that the first communication is with the intaker, the person that's the very front one, person in the front. And it can be any team member that takes the information from the patients. There can be a breakdown on that communication, and it starts from there. And then, of course, the data entry, right? The person that's entering all that information. And if that data entry is not the name that was given is not correct, or they attach the patient to the wrong insurance, then the fee schedule is incorrect. So it just kind of falls into that. And, if you have that, like a system that you go from the intake to the data entry, and you just keep following that up to like lack of documents, then it goes to the back office. The doctors don't do their notes, their clinical notes, narrative, the attachments, all that kind of falls into that. And then I think the most thing that I'm scared of is, or most of the office don't look at it, is the claims that's being lost within that system, or the x-rays, or the images, or whatever your attachment is, or the late claim processing. Somebody might have not completed that treatment for that day, and it just sits there, or it falls through the communication between, the PMS, clearinghouse, and by the time it gets to the insurance company, your attachment is no longer there. So those are some of the things that are important. And I think if everybody is on the same page and
Mhm.
communicate that through, then we'll be able to have that denial.
Okay, I would really like to get to a practical solution for that. Now you mentioned if everyone was on the same page. If we are having those problems, they're not on the same page. How can we get everyone on the same page?
Well, like I said, if we have, well, first of all, we have training for the office.
Hmm.
I believe in cross training everyone in that office. You know,
Okay.
everybody needs to understand, and then put them on a system.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to double check what the other person did, from the intake to the data entry. And I think the person that actually should recheck everything, just like when you go to a medical facility,
Yeah.
they will ask you these questions and verify this is your name, this is your date of birth. And that comes to the treatment coordinator, because she's actually sitting there facing the patient, and she's going to review
Hmm.
everything plus the doctor's diagnosis, and then she is also the one that makes sure whether she needs to use the correct code. By the time
Mm.
it gets to the claim biller, those things are already should be reviewed.
Right. So that a double checking is a bit of a key system in
Yeah.
there, is it? Okay. Thank you very much for that, Madalena. My next question is to you, Angie. Are you there, Angie? I think maybe you're on mute.
How about now? Is that working?
Yes, there you go.
Okay.
Yep, loud
Yay.
and
Yeah.
clear.
One way or the other, we're going to get it.
Yes, ma'am. All right, then, Angie. How do I make sure all of our PPO fee schedules are current for the new year?
Insurance companies work on those quite early in the year. They don't always give them out as soon as they're done. So I would keep up with all of your reps. I think it's super important to keep really good relationships with the representatives and stuff. We can get a long ways if we have a decent relationship with them. Although, sometimes you just got to call them out, right? You can contact them, and then the issue is you don't want to put them in too early because that will change estimates before the end of the year. So at the end of the year or before you get started in the beginning of the year, make sure you get those updated fee schedules in as soon as possible. Make sure that all of the deductibles, all of the maximums have been renewed. When you're setting up all of your systems, typically most of the softwares have the availability to choose the month that it renews, so it can auto renew, but then it's still important to make sure that you are updating. Deductibles may change, may go away, may get higher. Maximums are the same. They could go up or down or whatever. Just because they had Delta before and they have Delta now does not mean it's the same Delta plan. So make sure you're checking on all of those.
Wonderful. And you just mentioned to call them out. Can we look at it like a benchmark timeline? When should we be calling them out?
I've had some give me some information as early as September and say it was coming. They didn't send it to me at that point. So I do check on them like every month and make sure that that's the way, have you got it yet? Can I get it? Most of them are pretty good at getting it to me as soon as they get them, if you have a good relationship with them. And then if I haven't got it, we're starting to get closer and closer. I will be more adamant and more frequent in making my requests and getting them. And then on the other aspect, right, they could have issues. There's all sorts of them. They have issues and concerns and, IT issues, or, they just have gotten things done or whatnot. And so letting your patients know, communicating with your patients about what the details are and empowering them to get to know their plans. I have had some patients reach out and been able to get one too when I've had a hard time getting them. So talk to your patients. They're a good resource. And I kind of feel like we should educate them that their policies are their responsibilities and we're here to help them. But it's not our plan. It's their plan. And it's important for them to know.
Absolutely. And Angie, right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Angie. And
No problem.
sorry, my bad. I think we're going to go in for a little poll right now. And here we go. So, let's do a little pulse check with our attendees over here for the next 30 seconds. What is your biggest insurance frustration leading into 2026? I'm going to launch this poll. We'll take 30 seconds and see what everyone in attendance have to say. Is it delays? Is it denials? Is it underpayments? Is it confusing benefit breakdowns? Unpredictable reimbursements? Or, Adriana Garcia has a different option as well, merging of insurance. That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, there we go. Wow. So currently, denials is in the lead. And okay, we got two people with issues with merging of insurance. I hope our panelists can talk about that a little bit. Definitely, that would be much appreciated. Denials is the number one, still in lead, with delays in second, and then unpredictable reimbursement in third. Oh, okay. We've taken a little bit longer than 30 seconds. I'm going to share the results so that for the next round, I would love for our panelists to kind of lean in to what actual problems our attendees are really going through with regards to these insurance frustrations. With that being said, I would like to go to the next question here. Tessina, how do you balance negotiating with insurers while also protecting relationships with patients who may be caught up in the middle?
Yeah, that's a good question. The fear, I guess, with that is what that brings to mind for me is that offices are like, well, we don't want it to cost more for the patient, or we don't want it to hinder the patient. We don't want to lose the patient. But providing quality care is protecting your patient, right? You're not doing your patients any favors by taking plans that restrict your ability to provide good quality care, not just short term, but long term as well. And those patients can still use their benefits. You can still keep those patients. They can still use their benefits. You can offer your own discount if you're really worried about that. But most of our offices don't need to offer their own discount, because when you help them to use their benefits from their insurance company, then that does still kind of take care of that. So there's a lot of options in there to protect your patients. But the biggest thing you want to do to protect your patient is provide good quality care. And the mainstream thing that's happening with the dental industry right now is that those contracts and those regulations are becoming more and more restrictive for doctors to be able to provide that comfortably. So if you want to protect your patient, sometimes being a non-contracted provider or only being contracted with insurance companies that support good quality care, that's protecting your patient. Educate your patients, help them to understand that, know that, and share that with them and teach them how to use their benefits regardless of what plan they're on and whether or not you take it.
Okay. And Tessina, can you also speak on the matter about merging of insurance? How can we
Yes.
address this?
That is a big deal. Everybody's getting letters right now of the merging of the insurances. I know it's blowing up my phones, and I understand how confusing and how stressful that is. And it becomes more problematic when you have some contracts, but not all contracts. And that is a problem. The way to protect yourself from all of these companies merging, and what happens is when you are on those plans and one of them has a low paying fee schedule, that's the frustration. That, if I'm going to say, is that right? But yes, that's the frustration I'm hearing is now a company merges and all of a sudden you were on a higher plan, a higher fee reimbursement. And because one of these other companies merged and you happen to have a contract with them, you're now pushed to the lower fees. Offices don't know how to opt out. By the way, you can reach out to that insurance company and tell them that you do not approve them to sell those fees to that insurance company or to any insurance company for that matter. But the fewer contracts you have, the better. And that will protect you from these mergings that happen when they go into place. It won't affect you because you don't have a contract in place or a direct contract. You can use an umbrella contract, and that protects you from those mergings. But I call it a web. It's a little web of disaster, but it can definitely be untangled. There are some of the specialists here that keep track of those webs and can help you clean that up. Sorry, was that
Okay,
long?
No, that's great.
absolutely. Madalena, would you also like to lean into that?
I think it has a lot, like Tessno was already touching on most of it, but it also depends on like some of the union contracts are probably the craziest one that you try to get into because they have their own rules, and I think we have to understand the insurance rules in order for us to present it and try to help our patients, and that's what I wanted to share because the insurance rules are different, and a lot of us don't understand those rules.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With that being said, Madalena, let's transition into your question. So what are the key reasons why maintaining accurate patient data is essential to our insurance biller?
Oh gosh, that is like probably the number one thing is that because if the intake, let's say the patient called in and says his name is Johnny and the intaker just put down Y for Johnny and actually the patient's name is IE, that creates the whole chaos right there because the name is now incorrect. Or when the people that are actually or entering the information might transpose the date of birth,
or attach the insurance, the patient to the wrong insurance fee schedule. And it just falls from there. And it's so important that everything is very crucial for this part of the communication within the office. I always look at it as if it's a domino effect. Once that doesn't that domino gets, it just goes right down, and by the time the insurance biller gets it, it's already wrong. And if she doesn't catch it, then your claim is going to be denied or delayed. And once it's delayed, it's going to be a layered of reviews or a review, and it can sit there for weeks, days, months, who knows. But so I think it's important that we keep in mind that we want to make sure the data is correct.
Right. And Madalena, how should teams handle patients who rush or resist providing updated information?
There is a lot of outsourcing company out there, as well as automated software that can actually are able to do that. To do it in the office is so chaotic within the office, because you have the phone, you have the doctor, you have patients that are mad, they come up to you, and then everybody's rushing, right? And so I see that they have all this automation, optimization software out there that they can actually just send the patient the information ahead of time. Make sure you verify the insurance ahead of time. I think you just have to prep yourself before it gets to that point. And by using this outsourcing company and a different software outside of your office, for me, that's a heavenly thing for me.
Let's go. Delegation is at times, a way to peace. Definitely. Thank you very much for that, Madalena. Angie, back to you.
Yes.
Yes. What should I check when verifying New Year benefits? What are the main things?
I did kind of touch on that just a little bit ago, but
absolutely.
Group numbers, right? Like I said, things can change at the beginning of the year or whenever it's not always at the beginning of January, right? But some of them renew different months of the year. So you want to check those, check deductibles, maximums, addresses. We all know that there are a whole bunch of different Delta dentals, and patients go, oh yeah, we still have Delta, except for now it's Delta of Massachusetts instead of Georgia. So we've got to make sure that all of those are there. Most of the Delta websites do have, that information on them. But patients don't always know any of the differences and things like that. So you've got to check all of those. Any frequencies, missing tooth claws might change, different things like that, so that we can give them the best information that we can, right? The most accurate that we can.
Okay. And let's get a bit actionable, right? What's one must-ask question that offices often forget during that verification call?
I think it's kind of office specific, because there are certain things, right? Like Tesna was talking about a PPO office. A PPO office is going to ask different questions than what a surgical office is, or an ortho, or a general, and what do your doctors do? So there's a lot of general offices that have started doing Invisalign and different things like that. So then you need to ask about ortho, right? What is the ortho? What are you doing? Are there benefits? Are there age limits on ortho? Because just because the policy has ortho doesn't mean it covers everybody. There could be an age limit on that. Just frequencies are a huge thing, right? Insurance companies, patients don't always remember. And so get an idea, make sure, right, that you know what the frequencies are. If you've been in dentistry for a while, they've gone from 5 years to, there are some out there now that are 10 years to have a crown replaced. And how do you handle that within the practice? I also think one of them is one thing that I like to really touch on all of this. Across the board, it is a team effort. It takes everybody on the team on the same page. Everybody's contribution or lack thereof contributes to us being able to get claims paid, right?
Okay.
From the doctor and the assistants, hygienists, everything on down.
how do we blame, how do we not get into a sort of a blame game when it comes to this and play it more as a team participation? How can everyone
I think communication
contribute?
is key, right? Everybody, and how do we do this? So we all have a role, and if everybody understands, and you always have someone, not always, sometimes there are some on a team that are not wanting to be part of the team. So I think team effort is huge. Communication is huge. Let everybody understand how it is, and how their lack or their contributions contribute to all of it. Any one piece that is missing can delay any claim for any reason. Let's be honest, right? They come up with all sorts of new reasons right now to deny claims. If anybody has gotten that one, right? Oh, these new things. Oh, we pay for crowns, but now we're denying buildups because buildups are just not a covered benefit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Angie. I absolutely appreciate it. And like you said, it's a team effort that makes
It is a team
this
effort.
possible. Now, I would like to get into another team effort, which is I'm going to have a little pulse check with the audience. This time it'll be a little chat. So what's one improvement your team wants to make with insurance processes next year? I'm dropping it in to the webinar's chat. Would love to hear the answers over here. And Adriana, Delana, I hope you got some insight with regards to the merging of insurance. If you have any more particular specific questions, please do feel free to drop them here or in the Q&A section below.
Yeah, I rushed through that. I just didn't want to take too much time on it. So I'm sorry. I was trying to drop a whole bunch of information fast. So hopefully that was enough to help.
So Adriana says, yes, thank you. Okay. Mac Folliger says AI processing and communication. That's fantastic because we have the person for this coming up in the next panel. So yeah. Right. With that being said, eliminate some of them. Okay. All right, Lynn, we have something for you as well. So stick around. Definitely, we can help you with how you can go about eliminating some of these PPO plans. So, Tessina, as the chat answers those questions, I'll check in on them definitely, and really appreciating everyone in the attendance to being so proactively engaging with us. That's what makes this discussion so much more valuable and so much more relevant. So thank you again. Tessina, what role does the front office play in strengthening a practice's position when negotiating with insurance companies?
Yeah, definitely. That's a key role that the front office has, is making sure that the UCR fees are positioned correctly for the area. And what happens is offices don't update their fees for a long time, or they're afraid to increase their fees again because they're like, oh, we don't want it to be too costly, or we don't know where to position them to. A lot of reasoning around these UCR fees, and sometimes somebody's just been practicing for a long time and hasn't updated those every single year. So January's coming up, start prepping. If your fees are positioned really well, you can do just a small increase, even just like a little 1%. But if you haven't increased your fees for a while, you might need to do a little bit more research to find out what the fees are for your area and your zip code, and position them ideally between the 70th and 80th percentile for your area. You can go to fairhealthconsumer.org. You can reach out to some services like the NDAs that provide those. I don't recommend using like the Henry Schein options. They go off of data that they find from claims submissions or from the provider's fee schedules in their own software. And that's the Henry Schein and the Patterson. They both do things like that. That is not an accurate representation of what the going rate is for your area. So be a little bit mindful of that. It's nice that they offer that, but it's not accurate because those office softwares could be outdated. They could have the wrong fee schedules. They could be doing it incorrectly. So you don't want to use that for your data, but making sure those UCR fees are positioned correctly. And then I know it to me seems like we've talked about this so much, but I'm still coming across offices that are not submitting the full office fee on their claim to the insurance company. One of the big culprits is Dentrix, because Dentrix default is to send the contracted rate. If you have Dentrix, go make sure that your default claim form is set to have the office fees submitted. The insurance company, and I think Lena touched on this earlier, and I love that. There's a disconnect, there's a miscommunication between the insurance companies and the offices. The insurance companies are expecting that whatever you're reporting on that claim for the fees is what your cost is, what your whole overhead is, so that you're billing enough to cover all your overhead and the insurance reimbursement. And then they negotiate a discounted rate, right? So if we're submitting that contracted fee and then you're saying, I need a fee increase, they would say, why? We're already paying you your full fee, because they think that what you're submitting is your full fee. So you are literally shooting yourself in the foot if you're not submitting your full office fee on those claim forms. Go make sure that that's happening. And then using the correct codes is a big one. Sorry, I'm taking too long. Make sure that you're using correct updated codes. And also, one last thing I can think of is actually appealing those denials. I know denials is one of the big topics right now, but actually appealing those denials, whether it's bundling of x-rays, whether it's bundling of the buildup or a gingivectomy, whatever that is, when we appeal those situations, and I have one 4346, a gingivitis cleaning. Some insurance companies say that that's only allowed every 24 months. When we appeal and say, hey, that's not how gingivitis works, we're actually teaching the insurance company what is acceptable and what's not. So when we don't fight those denials with our appeals, they assume that it's acceptable. So when we do that, that also helps change things for the future, right? To make sure that we can get coverage and we can get better reimbursement rates. There's, again, the 4346, sometimes the fee for that goes the same or lower than a pro fee. You need to appeal that, saying this is more money, this is more time, this is more difficult. When we do that, it changes it for the future. And I'll stop there. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Tessina. And also, Angela wanted some clarification. If you could type in the name of the websites that you recommended, that would be okay. And I think, Angie already got to got to it.
It's fairhealthconsumer.org, though.
Oh, okay, there we go. If you could type it out, that'll be much appreciated.
Yeah, fairhealthconsumer.org. I'll type it in.
Fantastic. Madalena, let's get back to you. Could you share some best practices for preventing dental coding mistakes and improving that accuracy?
For me, I think the insurance person or the treatment coordinator, the back office, they all need to make sure they're updated, because the ADA annually, update their coding, and some of the office don't even do that. So we need to make sure everybody's on the same page. Hey, it's the end of the year, we're going to change coding. Let's make sure we have those coding corrected and updated, not only for the billing, but it's also I don't know if everyone knows that there's codes that you use, the ICD-10. If it's a severe periodontitis, why would you want to send it to the dental? So those are things that with our insurance billers and the office itself needs to understand. And I think there's a lot of training out there, resources. Go out there and find information so you're not billing a severe periodontitis on a regular ADA form, the dental form. Make sure you're using the ICD-10, because you're talking about a disease that this patient has. So, because you get more money from when you're billing medical insurance anyways. So you just have to be very cautious on what you're doing. Don't just send your codes, and make sure your codes matches the doctors, the clinical notes and the narratives, and all your attachments are there.
Okay, Madalena, can we get a little bit into 2026. So why is coding accuracy becoming more critical heading into 2026?
Oh gosh, I think Tess and I also touch on this, and
Yeah.
everyone else on the panel. And like I said, if the wrong code is being used, not only your company, your dental office is going to be underpaid, you know, and then because if you build the right code, you get the right fee, you get paid more money, more revenue
Yeah.
coming in, revenue cycle is coming in, which because it's correct. But if you build like the wrong code, you're probably going to get paid $70, $60 for on a 4341 instead of ICD-10, you know, KO5, you know, 323, you know, so that's a difference.
Yeah.
So if you don't understand these codings, please take a course, you know, do your research, learn more about these codings, because I know these codings, they didn't come in until like in the 200s, you know, in
Yeah.
the millennium, and the CDT has been there for ages. So
Yeah.
that's why it's so
Well,
important for you to make sure you have the right code and you're billing the right code.
thank you, Madalena, for that. Uh, Angie, let's get back to you. How do I handle patients whose benefits haven't updated yet in the portal? Are we going to let them
Yeah.
just be?
No, you could just have to have the right conversation again with your patient, right? And let them know. Say it is not on the portal yet. Your new information is not there. Communicate with us. You stay on them. Have your HR department stay on them, and just let them know ahead of time that this may or may not be the same after the first of the year. If you want to schedule on the 3rd of January and your information is not in there yet, it could be inaccurate, and just give them a heads up. I really like it in writing. So like treatment planning and whatnot, I initial it and they sign it. That has saved my butt so many times. Is like, remember we talked about this, and then they're like, oh yes, we did. Right? They forget. They're under stress. They've just been told they need some dental work done and whatnot, and so they forget too. So I always want to give gratis for that. But yeah, just have the conversation. I think I would rather over communicate and tell them and let them know what it's like so that they understand and know that we're doing the best that we can for them.
Okay. Let's get a little bit actionable with this one as well. What's one clear script to set expectations without alarming the patient?
Insurance companies change their plans all the time, and definitions change, and exclusions change, or denials come up, right? Okay, we're not going to cover this one anymore. We're not going to cover that one anymore. But our treatment and our recommendation for our patients is what is needed for them. It has nothing to do with what the insurance says. It is about what is best for them, straight across the board. That's what it is. We are here for the best service for our patients, period, regardless of what the insurance company says.
Amazing. And I think when you mentioned it earlier as well, putting it in writing, that'll
Yes.
help them remember it a
Right.
lot more better as well.
Well, and then I keep a copy and I give them a hard copy too. I really like that. Yeah, and we can email and stuff like that too, but make sure that they have a copy as well as you do. I scan those babies in every time. Yep.
Well, that's wonderful practical advice, Angie. Thank you very much for that. Tessina, let's get practical again. So what are
Okay.
some of the practical steps that front office team can take to track patterns in claim denials or underpayments and then use that information in negotiations?
Yes. Okay. So we talk a lot about reimbursement rates being something we watch and track to know if we want to work with that insurance company, be a contracted provider. But what about when they have a lot of denials or they don't delays or, all those restrictions? Typically, what I find is that the companies with the low reimbursement rates are also in these bad habits of denying and delaying. But it's not always the case. You can have a company that has a decent reimbursement rate to your standards, but they are a nightmare to deal with. So we need to remember that when we work with an insurance company, it's a business relationship. We are saying that they are doing the marketing to bring those patients to the office. And then in cost of the marketing, you provide a discount to your patients. It's not a good business relationship to work with a company that repeatedly does not pay you on time or at all because of all of the denials, right? So that is something that we need to track and keep track of and evaluate those plans for possible termination, again, like going out of network or using that in negotiations. When you go to negotiations, that's your leverage again of like, look, I have this record, I have this history. You guys don't pay these on time. What incentive do I have to stay with you? And we have done this successfully in the past with two insurance companies that I can think of right now. I won't say names, but we had major complaints going out to the provider relations, and everybody was upset. A lot of offices wanted to drop the network because of the frustration of not getting the claims paid on time and having lengthy attachment requests. And now those insurance companies, they made it a goal to get those claims paid within 2 weeks. And one of them said, we're going to remove the requirement for any attachments at all, right? So there is progress. Again, we have to use our voices. We have to speak up. What I see more often than not, offices are busy. They don't want to upset the patient. They feel like it's too much work to fight that denial. Maybe it's only for $50. So they will write it off. The doctor, the office, the practice loses that money because they're like, it's just not worth the hassle. But in doing that, we're not advocating for the change that's needed in this industry. And the more offices that are following that trend are affecting and slowing down the progress that we could be having. And I think we're working on that. We've been doing a lot of this education, but as more and more offices are advocating and speaking up, we can see that change. But everybody needs to be on board for that advocacy.
I really like that advocation part and how everyone needs to be on board with this. But again, as you mentioned, practice owners or dentists may think it's not just worth the hassle, right? Or they might not know exactly how to handle that conflict situation, What would you say to, our listeners out there who have that almost a fear of conflict?
Yeah, definitely. We'll keep joining these podcasts because we talk a lot about how to fight these insurance denials and how to take back the power and how to advocate for yourself. But use your insurance commissioner. This is something obviously that I'm very passionate about. We don't need to do 5 appeals. We don't need to argue back and forth with the insurance company for them to diagnose treatment. That's illegal. We should be, again, using our voice to the right people. Why are we spending so much time trying to go to the insurance company to get them to pay when they're the ones that don't want to pay? We have to go to those who police the insurance companies and protect those patient benefits for the premiums that they're paying. So if you want to be an advocate for yourself, for the industry, and for your patient, go to your insurance commissioner, go to the federal department, go to the ADA. Make sure you are going to the provider relations department, or go out of network with that plan. When we do those big movements, and the more that do it, the better, right? But when we do those big movements, your voice will be heard.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Tesna. And I think before you hop off, Angela just mentioned that I was told from an EagleSoft rep that they will be adding the IDC 10 codes to help with this in one of the new updates coming next year. So is that good to know?
Yeah, all of the softwares should have the ICD-10s available for you guys to use. Metlana, I love what you're talking about billing medical, and we probably don't even have enough time to touch on all of that. But yes, ICD-10s, use them. The dental forms are going to start using them as well. That's big and coming, where that's kind of merging a little bit. But we need to be aware of how to use those ICD-10 codes, how to bill the medical when necessary. Yes, that's good.
Okay.
It's in all your softwares.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much for your very comprehensive answer to that previous question and your update on this one as well. Thank you, Tesna. Before we move on to the next question, another poll. Let's launch this one and see what people have to say. So, what do you struggle with most during the New Year benefit reset? This is a very specific one. So let's check it out. So the answers are outdated fee schedules, portal delays, benefit misalignments, verification challenges, or patient confusion. Would like to get some oh, wow. So the number one so far has been patient confusion. Wow. Yeah, at 64%, everyone has patient confusion. Portal delays are coming up next, and then benefit misalignment after that. But patient confusion is in the lead right now. Okay. Okay. Wow. And I'm going to end the poll in 5, 3, 2, 1. Okay. And I'm just going to share these results. And I really hope we can talk about that a little bit more, how we can address this. How are we going to address patient confusion when it comes to the New Year benefit reset? Okay, I'm going to have this on a little bit, and as we move on, we will discuss this. Thank you, everyone, for joining in on the poll. Really appreciate that. Madalena, what steps would you recommend the team to minimize the risk of claims being delayed or denied? Madalena, oh, sorry. I think, are you muted? No. You are not audible for some reason. Can you do a mic check 1, 2, 3 real quickly? Okay, as I think Madalena.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear
got
you.
it. I don't know something out there.
No
Go
worries,
ahead.
no worries. Yeah. So, Madalena, what steps would you recommend for teams to minimize the risk of claims being delayed or denied?
I think we touch on that. It's like the communication, making
Absolutely.
sure that our codings are correct and it matches our SOAP notes, the narrative, all that. And it's very important for the insurance biller in each office that she reviews them. It takes her a few minutes just to review her claim, making sure that her attachments are there. And once she's guaranteed herself or she's good to go, do it. Few minutes is better than a week, 2 weeks of your claim sitting on the other side. And
Okay.
for me, that's the most important thing is just the communication.
Okay. Madalena, can you also lean in onto this, what our poll results has shown? So a lot of our attendees here are struggling, with patient confusion when it comes to the New Year benefit reset. Can you give some guidance on this, how to
Sure.
address it?
I think it's important for us to educate our patients, remind them, hey, it's going to be a new year. Double check with your employees. It starts from there because the employees can turn around and either terminate their insurance or they change the insurance on them. That is the biggest thing that I found is that the employees don't communicate with their their people, but then it's important that they understand their insurance, their coverage. And then for us, when we do our insurance verification, we should catch it up right away. It's the beginning of the year. We already should have a mindset, okay, everybody's insurance is going to change. But not only the beginning of the year, there's some insurance that changes in the middle of the year. And that's where some of the issues comes in, because they have plans that changes in midway, and nobody is looking into that. So insurance verification is so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Madalena. And I would also like to move to Angie with the same question, because, I feel like maybe you might have a different perspective on this, Angie. Again, patient confusion, it's communication. How are we doing that? How are we doing that, especially with regards to the new year benefit reset?
Right. One thing I really like to tell my office is please don't ask your patients if they have the same insurance. Ask them what their insurance is and let them tell you, because they may not even remember which one you have on file, right? And if you are just asking, that's not specific. So I want to know, what is your insurance, right? Have you had any changes in your benefits at the first of the year? Do you go to, most bigger companies have a meeting with their employees to let them know about the benefit changes and stuff? And let's be honest, my husband goes to that and he never pays any attention, but right, they have them. And so it is crucial. And just also, don't just believe with what they say, right? Double check it. Make sure you have checked it before they come in, right? So many of the softwares and stuff have an auto check, at least to verify to the clearinghouses do, the software companies do, just to at least verify that it still says that they're eligible, because they could come in, if you say, do you have the same insurance? If you haven't checked and they say yes, you could already know that maybe they don't, right? So do your due diligence, do it before they come in. I like looking at least a week ahead and verifying that. At the end of the year, you can't always do that, but any other time really you can, right? But it can renew at any time. And if you pull it up on the website and say, hey, right, it's not eligible, or the clearinghouses tell you it's not eligible, and anyway, I like details. So ask them, what is your insurance? Let's get a copy of your card, make sure that you have all of those things, because the longer, right, you're billing it out to the wrong one, that is extra time. The longer the money's on the books, the more money it costs you. It's just not cost effective, right? Again, every person contributes, and it's a team effort. Everybody needs to make sure that it's there. Let's stop having the conversations too. This might be just slightly off of this, but we won't do it because your insurance doesn't pay it, right? That's, again, our care is about our patients, not about what your insurance dictates. If you need another x-ray, guess what? You need another x-ray, and that's facts. We cannot provide the best treatment for you if we don't have all the tools that we need to diagnose.
Right on. Thank you very much for that, Angie, leaning into the burning questions of our audience, really. And with that being said, I would like to move back to Tesna. I think this will be our last question before we will have to wrap up the session. Tesna, from the front desk perspective, what are the best ways to communicate insurance limitations or denials to patients without damaging trust?
Yes. Okay. And I feel like it kind of touches a little bit on what we're talking about. Both, by the way, both ladies just nailed it. I completely agree. And I want to touch just a tiny bit on that before I get to that question, which you might have to repeat for me. But
absolutely.
Patients get confused, right, about their medical or their dental. They don't know. Sometimes they're like, oh, my insurance changed, and they give you their new medical when really their dental didn't even change. So sometimes that's an issue, right, of just being familiar. And I think both of these ladies hit on it perfectly. But you need to be more knowledgeable yourself. And this answers that question as well. From the front desk perspective, you're saying, like, how can we communicate this to patients? So the more knowledgeable, is that right? So
Yes.
the more knowledgeable you are and the more confident you are in not just how their plan works, but how insurance companies work. How does their plan work? And then you're educating them that, again, insurance coverage is not really insurance coverage. It's more of a discount plan. And this is how insurance companies works. They have financial denials or exclusions and limitations. When you do that insurance breakdown of benefits at the beginning of the year, you need to make sure that you're asking for that plan's exclusions and limitations from a financial standpoint, not based on what is standard of care. Educating the patients that those plan restrictions are not based on standard of care. It is based on the financial decision to keep their premium low. That is how the HR department set up their plan. So they still need this treatment. This is required. Their insurance, the plan that they're on, that their employer chose, only pays for this and this. But this is what they need. Two completely separate things. So this goes into what everybody's been talking about today. It's like how to educate those patients on those things. And it's putting it on where it belongs with the insurance company, with the employer contracts, separating it from the quality of care and standard of care, what is needed for their oral health, right? So now I've lost my train of thought a little bit, but let me look. I was going to say, yes, thank you. So separating those things together and being familiar and knowledgeable ahead of time with the insurance breakdown, but continuing education, keep doing these podcasts, learn everything you can. And then every conversation with you have, it doesn't need to be long and drawn out, but you just add in these little tidbits of information here and there. Like, oh yeah, did you know that's how your employer set up your plan? If you're not happy with that, you can definitely go talk to your employer about it and they can look into switching that. Sometimes the employers don't even realize, or those HRs don't realize that that was something hidden within those plan guidelines. So go ahead, go back and let your HR department know, right? It can be short, quick, to the point, but it puts it where it belongs. I was going to mention, I had wrote down while Angie was talking, I love that she said, be very specific. And I'm going to add to that something that I have found is super helpful, again, is being very specific. But what we're having is when patients walk in the door, the offices are saying, do you have any changes or do you have the same insurance, like Angie said? And that does not get us the response that we need. So I like what Angie said, but also another option for you is to say, hey, do you still have that Delta Dental plan through Walmart? So we're doing two things, is we're mentioning the insurance we have on file and the employer that we had it on file with. Because sometimes, like we've talked about, they have Delta Dental, but it's through a different employer now. They switched employers, but it's still Delta. So that gives us 2 points to kind of catch, to trigger their thought process of like, oh, no, I don't work for that employer anymore. And then they start digging through their stuff to find the correct insurance updated information. But I like Angie's way too of like, hey, what insurance do you have? Or I have them present the card every time, because then that's almost even better, Angie, because then they can't just write it off and be like, oh yeah, everything's the same, right? But that's the goal, is to trigger the thought process of the patient instead of getting them to just kind of blatantly answer like, yep, everything's the same, nothing's changed, happy dappy, right? And you're like, no, that's not true. And then having that verification ahead of time, you can have those heads up to things. But yeah, okay, that's what I had written down that I wanted to touch on from that. And I think I answered the other question. Sorry, I rambled. What do you got for me?
No, you did good. You did good. I think you were very comprehensive. You answered that question. You answered the poll as to, the pulse check, as well as, you build it up very well with regards to Angie's point previously. So overall, fantastic. And just before we wrap up, I would love to get a key takeaway from each of our panelists. So let's start with you, Madalena. What's the one key takeaway from this panel if our audience members has only one to take away? Go ahead. Yeah, okay, sorry, you were muted. No worries.
I think the teamwork, communication.
Teamwork, communication, wonderful. And Angie?
I was thinking the exact same thing, right? Communication and actually educating patients as well, letting them take control. Give
letting
it back
them
to
take.
them. Yeah, I think we took it from them years ago, and it's time for us to be proactive and give them back. This is your policy. Important for you to know. We're here to help you with it, but it is your policy.
Right on. And Tessina,
I
what's
love
the
these
key?
ladies. I love talking with them. I think we're all like trying to say all the same things at all the same times, and it's been really fun. So thank you, ladies. That has been my true pleasure, is kind of sharing this panel with you guys today. The takeaway, I think there is several, but right, I agree. It is communication. It is teamwork, and I'll just add to that, advocating. Advocate for your patients, advocate for your industry, for those changes, right? Don't take no for an answer. Don't write off things out of fear. Never come from a place of fear. Ben talks about this a lot, and I love it, so I'm stealing this from them. But make a non-emotional assessment. Right. So we love our patients so much, and we care so much, and that can sway some of our decisions away from good business decisions into decisions of like, oh, we just want to do kind of charity dentistry. We can't do charity dentistry if we go bankrupt, you guys. So advocate for yourself and advocate for the whole industry. And part of that takes place with educating your patients as well.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Tessina, Atlanta, and then Angie as well. That was a fantastic panel. Let's try to put some hands together. I mean, we are online, so here's the clap emoji. If we can give a little hands up. Oh, a
Love
round of
it.
applause for our wonderful panelists over here.
Hey, can I add one more thing really fast? Also,
Go ahead.
doctors and team, educate your team. It makes a difference to have a team that knows and understands what they're doing. It is hands down a game changer.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Angie. Now we will be moving on to the next session, which will be a little bit different, but will nevertheless be very interesting for y'all. So next up, we have wonderful presentation, an insurance presentation led by one of the most respected insurance strategists in dentistry, Benjamin Tweeney. Ben has spent years helping practices understand how insurance companies operate behind the curtain and what you can do starting now to strengthen your financial future in 2026. Ben, the floor is yours. Whenever you're ready, feel free to share your screen. Oh, okay. You're already shared. Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you, Don. Am I coming in good audio-wise?
Yes. Yes.
Very good.
You are coming in loud and clear. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, ladies, Tessina, Matalena, Angie, wow, wonderful content. Thank you so much. I do want to explore medical billing more. So perhaps, ladies, get ready to talk more about that during the next webinar, because that's where the industry is headed, right? That's where we get the bigger dollars. And so I wanted to support. In fact, I sort of changed my presentation because I wanted to support what our wonderful ladies shared with us today, with regards to dealing with insurance, the day-to-day problems, but also the comments. Thank you all for you being here today, and we're going to get to the denial components. I want to talk about that at great length. And with the interest of time, with only 20 minutes to deliver, I'm just going to get straight into it. And so when we look at inflation in dentistry, I mean, it's no surprise, 31% since 2020. And naturally, what happened in the industry is that our own associations, American Dental Association, the Academy of General Dentistry, all the specialty associations really tried hard to petition insurance companies to help raise those reimbursement levels, as well as lessening the impact on denials to help dental practices with their payroll, right? At least help eliminate the component on what's happening today, and that's happened forever, is that practice owners are paying the payroll to chase down money that should have been paid the first time around, right? And so it's not just inflation in dentistry, it's the fact that we're dealing with an enormous amount of denials, stagnant fees that really, really make dentistry difficult in terms of the operations, sustaining a business or sustaining quality care components, which is a big threat in our industry. And so What I want to quickly talk about in the next 15 minutes are these 6 things. Clean claims being denied, lots and lots of refund requests insurance companies are sending dentists everywhere. I just saw one yesterday for $56,000, and there was no evidence that doctor was overpaid $56,000. Then you have all these issues of AR. Like AR is out of control in a lot of practices these days. And it has everything to do with what the wonderful ladies had mentioned today, in the sense of incorrect preparation at the start, right? Incorrect insurance verifications, but a lot also, not factoring in things like downgrades or all the different components that would help us come to a better estimate for the patient. But so we'll talk about that in a little bit, and how to address those and really eliminate those AR components to where you're protecting that financial integrity of care, right? You're not losing any more than is necessary. And then non-covered services is a big one. A lot of us do things like veneers, or night guards, or even crown restorations where you have an in-house milling machine, or a more aggressive example is when you're doing cosmetic cases and you're in network. You have so many limitations on what you can collect. And in most situations, what you collect doesn't even cover the materials and time to do treatment. And so how do we deal with those? And then finally, we want to talk about insurance companies redefining treatment. It is not their role. It is not within their scope of the license that they have to engage in the diagnostic process, but they do it all the time. So what should you look out for, and how should you address those issues? All right, so let's just dive into it. I want to first start talking about sort of the history behind insurance in terms of the numbers. Like, a good question I always like to ask is, in your mind, what percentage of people with an annual maximum, a PPO plan, what percentage of them use their whole max every year? And not everybody does. In fact, in a lifetime for most patients, the vast majority won't use their annual maximum, or some may only use it once in their lifetime. But historically, only 6% of people with dental insurance reach their annual maximum. Well, what about those that do a restorative procedure that, if they go in network, that's when you pay your deductible a lot of times, right? Well, 22% of them do restorative procedures. Global utilization among adults is only at 36 to 37%. Do you know that children, when you look at Medicaid, all these Medicaid programs, it's 52% or less in terms of children using those particular programs. And so when you look at fully insured plans, dental plans, half of what people pay for dental insurance goes towards the insurance, and only 50% goes towards your benefits. So if I'm talking to somebody that says, what dental insurance plan should I buy? And I'm not getting it through my employer, I will say, don't do dental insurance. Just talk to the office about their membership plan or something else. But fully insured plans are a terrible way to insure yourself. Out of every dollar that you buy in a benefit, you're losing 50%. So don't do that. But these are the numbers that we're dealing with, is from the components of AI taking over claims processing, or claims reviews, to the extent where we're seeing a record amount of claims being denied. And then the last one there, we don't have time to talk about, Tesla is a big proponent for out of network, which I agree. That endorsement part is, maybe we'll talk about that during the February quarterly webinar for the Insurance Untangled podcast. I want to talk about just kind of getting into this whole culture of denials. Every year, dental practices submit anywhere between $155 to $170 billion worth of claims to dental insurance companies. So in this last year, out of 155 billion dollars worth of claims, 11.5 million was denied, right? When you look at the percentages of successful appeals, it was only 5%. So you take 5% out of that 11 billion, it comes out to, you take 5%, out of the aggregate number, that's how they measured it. You come out with 581 million, which means that the insurance industry still earned $11 billion off of your hard-earned work, right? That is the most alarming thing that we discovered, is the fact that $11 billion was legitimate treatment that should have been paid. The vast majority of the stuff were covered, things like scaling, root planing, buildups, things like that should be paid. but it's a total claims disaster culture that we're dealing with in the industry. And sadly, that's the very reason why, this very poor, innocent United Healthcare CEO was assassinated on the steps of New York City last year, is because the public is getting frustrated at the fact that they're paying for health coverage and their own family members are dying due to denial of coverage or getting sicker, which subsequently leads to death. So in dentistry, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with this culture of denials? Well, we study these things all the time, and Tessina was the first that helped me understand that using insurance commissioners is a very effective tool. It's one of those things that is very much overlooked in the industry, because every insurance coordinator, office manager, or practice administrator that I've ever talked to about calling the insurance commissioner, the vast majority of them that have tried, they didn't get anywhere. And so Tessina has a really good formula, and this is it. You're doing your best dentistry. Your coding and what goes out. There's no question that you're committing fraud. Everything is clean, right? You're submitting clean claims, and then you're finding this pattern that these insurance companies are denying a certain category of treatment, and it takes 3 to 4 appeals for them to overturn some claims, but a lot of them end up getting unpaid anyway. So when you see those patterns and that these things are covered, I think it was Angie that mentioned that a lot of times things are covered and then they get just subsequently denied, and so that it's our responsibility then to go and fight that. Or at least I should say the culture right now, in terms of us accepting an assignment of benefit, it's an assumption that it's our responsibility, right? And so when you contact the insurance commissioner, you just have to have your ducks in a row. You have to have evidence. You have to have all the paperwork that's necessary for you to at least demonstrate to the insurance commissioner that this is a problem, and it's been a problem for a long time. And here's the evidence. This is covered. Or classic example, it was pre-authorized and there was available annual maximum and it was still denied. In states like California, where the pre-authorization is actually legally considered a pre-approval, you could use that to your advantage on the pre-authorization side to get things that are denied when they were previously pre-authorized. That's how you get those things paid for. But if you use the insurance commissioner, when Tessina went through this, she'll be the first to tell you that the insurance commissioner was uninterested, but Tessina did a great job at following up very regularly, which resulted in the insurance commissioner taking the case. And finally, the insurance commissioner sent notices to these insurance companies, cease and desists, to stop these activities, and that they would lose their license to sell dental plans in that state, this is the state of Utah, if they continued this denial culture, or at least this denial pattern with this particular office. So what happened is that Tessina stopped seeing these denials. Her practice saw a major slowdown in these denials, but every other practice next door was experiencing the same thing. So go figure. But this is a really good technique for those of you that are looking for some new strategies. Here's another one. This one you want to appeal once. And so after your first appeal, then you can call the insurance company and request to speak to a HIPAA compliance officer. And by law, every insurance company and health insurance, any insurance, they must have a compliance officer because it's mandated by law. Ask for a disclosure of the records of who had a handle of this claim on the insurance side, who touched it, who looked at it, and then who denied it, and what are their credentials. And often when you make that request with a threat that, hey, if you don't respond to this within a reasonable time frame, the patient is likely going to call the United States Office of Civil Affairs to let them know that you violated their request for a HIPAA disclosure on who had access to their claim, to their clinical records. And so what you do see is that a lot of times the claims get paid. Sometimes the dental consultant will call you and then you can kind of go through your explanation. But the vast majority of the time they pay because they don't want to fess up that the denial was a result of AI, or a computer system or an intern that doesn't have any credentials in dentistry, right? They're just following protocol. But it's not protocol that determines what's right or wrong. It's how the plan design is written, and it's how the law governs these claims processing protocols. So this technique here is becoming more and more popular, and it works. All right, here's another appeal strategy. Did you know that the American Dental Association owns current dental terminology? So every CDT code is owned by the ADA, and only they have legal authority to change code definitions, to add and delete codes. Every insurance company that uses CDT terminology signs a leasing agreement with the ADA, and they promise the ADA to not change those code definitions. But guess what? That happens every single day where you get a denied claim and the insurance company is reinterpreting the buildup component, right? And like, oh, we don't really see that a buildup was necessary, even though that there was more than 50% of the tooth structure that was lost, or scaling root planing, classic example. Only the insurance says there are only 4 millimeter pockets that we can see. That's not enough for us to pay this claim. And it's like, seriously, what about bleeding? What about all these other things that constitute periodontal disease as described by the coding? And the insurance companies intentionally omit or change those definitions. Call them out. And if you're a member of the American Dental Association, ask the ADA for a copy of that agreement so that you can copy and paste the language that says the insurance companies have no legal right to change the codes, and then tell the insurance, you're changing the codes to deny this claim. We are going to be reporting this to the ADA for a coding violation, because that's a legal contract that's fully enforced by the government to teach insurance companies that, hey, they are not the final authority on things like this, right? All right. And forgive me, I got to go fast because I only got 4 more minutes. Refund requests. This is the best letter that you could ever use for a refund request. Now, these days, there's a pattern of refund requests where there's no evidence that you were actually overpaid. One of the more common examples is that a patient that was employed by an employer gets treatment today, but 4 days ago they were terminated, and so their dental plan should have been terminated. But it takes time for HR departments to notify the insurance companies, right? So the patient gets treatment, they defraud their insurance by using it even though they're terminated. So the liability is on the patient from that point, right? Because they know they don't have dental benefits. They've been notified about that. But they use their benefits anyway, not telling you as the doctor that they lost their job. And then the claim comes in, it gets paid, right? Or EOB, you cash it, and then a month later, the insurance company says, oh, this patient was unemployed, give us that money back. You don't have to give that money back. It is on the insurance company to pursue the patient for the refund. It's like, no, 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 no. If our contract is with you as an insurance company, whatever contract that the patient has with you and that employer that terminated the patient has nothing to do with us. So this is a perfect letter to address not just that kind of situation, but other situations where there's really no evidence that the insurance company is entitled to a refund. Okay. Yeah. Now here's another one that's on the rise. A lot of doctors are being dropped by insurance companies left and right. Years ago, we saw this happening with Humana, and unfortunately, the patient abandonment laws don't penalize insurance; they penalize you unless there's an access to care issue. And we saw this with Humana a number of years ago, where a lot of Humana Medicare patients that have plans called Dual Complete have no out-of-network benefits. Practice wasn't aware that they were dropped by Humana. Patient wasn't aware of that either. And then Humana didn't pay the claim because the doctor was dropped by Humana on Humana's own terms without following the right protocols within the contract, which means 90-day notice, right, to either party. That's an access to care issue in which you can sue, and the patient can sue an insurance company. So if any of you are dealing with that, we are in the process of doing all the legal research behind this issue because it's on the rise in a big way around the country. Just email one of us, and we can help you with this in the sense of pointing out the access to care laws and the part where the government has asked the insurance companies to maintain a sufficient provider network. And so there are advocacy components here that can be very, very helpful. Eliminating statements, it's as simple as, look, if you can do pre-auths on big treatment, do that. That gives you a way better understanding of what you can and cannot collect from the patient. But building your employer profiles and sub profiles correctly is the culprit, in my opinion, around the country. We put too many Delta Dentals in our system. We put, like, if we're in California, we have 50 Delta Californias in there. It's like, seriously, like, you got to clean that up. You got to get that right. You hear this old adage that junk in, junk out, right? You put misinformation in, you're going to get misinformation out. So just make sure that how you set up your practice defaults and your insurance profiles, that everything is right there. But always take a proactive approach. Like if you're going to do a procedure that is likely going to be downgraded, good example, posterior composites. Factor in the downgrade. If you don't know if it's going to be downgraded, factor it in and collect it. Assume that it's going to be downgraded and then collect appropriately to where you can always refund the patient. It's not illegal for you to collect an estimate, even though it might be higher than the actual copayment. You don't really know until the EOB comes in a lot of situations, right? But pad that, because it is easier for patients to receive a refund as opposed to you asking them for money. That upsets almost everybody. It's like, I already paid my fair share. We all know that game. Okay, I need to wrap it up here. Non-covered services. Most states have a non-covered service law, which means if it's never covered by the plan, you can charge your full fee. If you have issues with this, send me an email. I can send you a copy of your state law if you do have one that exists in your state. And then finally, insurance companies are not licensed to redefine treatment. They're not licensed to diagnose. So when I come across a situation where an insurance company, it looks like they're changing the diagnosis to remap a claim, and it looks like that they're ignoring the fact that what was submitted treatment-wise was covered. Now they're using other codes because they pay less. I always report them to the dental board. It's like, tell me who on your side made that re-diagnosis, and I'm going to report that to the dental board, because you're not licensed to do that. So anyway, Don, I'm gonna wrap up right now, my friend. I know Naren's behind us. So here's a summary of what we talked about. I know this is very, very, very fast. And so if anybody wants a copy of these slides or has any questions, you could check out any one of these websites where we do have blogs. Of course, Insurance Untangled, that's why you're here in terms of the podcast content, right? But send me an email, give us a call if there's something here that you heard that you want more clarification on. And then, of course, we'll be very, very happy to provide any additional content to everybody. But I just want to say thank you to Don, again, to all of our panelists. Thank you for today. Stay tuned for Naren, great marketing presentation. Then following Naren, you're going to hear from some really great panelists. Alvin Utai, who is the founder and CEO of Elite Dental Force, innovative AI technology for dental practices as it pertains to dealing with insurance. Pay attention to that. And then Dr. Kurt Brimley, founder of Utah Dental United. Also, the rebranded company that he's launching is called Dental Link IPA, which is an independent practitioner association, the very first developed in the dental industry, that is designed to help doctors, independent practitioners, fight insurance companies effectively on every component, including fees. And so pay attention to them as they chat. And of course, Wendy Reefer from ePractice Manager. Wendy is one of the foremost people in terms of practice management, coaching, and consulting on all things general practice management that I know, including Alan Hollander, which is her colleague. But Wendy's going to be sharing with us her wisdom. If there's anybody in the industry that I know that is compassionate from the perspective of understanding approaches in dentistry, changes in terms of how we do things in the business, Wendy is a great candidate. So folks, that's it for me. Thanks for listening to me today. And wonderful. I yield back to Don. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ben. And Ben, just as you sign off, there is a question from one of our members here in the audience. If you could type in that answer, that'll be great.
You got it.
Superb. So with that being said, thank you, Ben. Every summit, your presentation really helps practices see what's coming long before it hits their bottom line. So today was no exception. Thank you so much for that. And now we are moving on to our marketing blueprint Q&A with Naren Arulraja. So Naren, just to give a little introduction to Naren, he is the CEO of Equa Marketing. He's built one of the most respected digital marketing teams in healthcare, helping practices create predictable growth without depending on insurance. Naren has spent years analyzing what separates the top 1% of practices from the rest, and today he's here to share the blueprint for making 2026 your most intentional, strategic, and successful year yet. So one of the main questions that we're getting from our registrants is, I've always relied on insurance to keep patients coming in. Why change something that's worked for years?
That's a fair question, right? The name of this community, the name of this podcast, name of this event is Insurance Untangled. And pretty much there are 80% of practice owners who believe they absolutely need insurance, even though they might hate insurance's guts. And the reason they don't really like insurance is because of the games that insurance companies play. They don't keep up with inflation. Like everything is 50% more expensive today versus when we first pre-COVID. But has your reimbursements gone up 50%? No, it hasn't. So pretty much doctors have to do the same dentistry they did 5 years ago at less cost because the reimbursements haven't gone up. So a lot of you are relying on PPOs because that's what you're used to. That's what you have been accustomed to. The other challenge that comes with PPO is the mindset of a lot of PPO patients, which is it covered by insurance? That's the first and only question that always they seem to ask. So you might be like, okay, we need to do this for your health reasons, or you want to do this to create that beautiful smile, but because they have that screen, okay, is it covered by insurance? It's hard to break through that screen. And a lot of practices, I was talking to Dental Intel the other day, like they don't even present ideal care anymore because they're like, okay, why bother? Because their question is going to be, is it covered by insurance? And if it's not, then they're not going to say yes. So just not even bother talking about it. So those are the two challenges that, practices with insurance face. So for those reasons, you want to start changing the way you think about it. So look at PPO as, you are not in control, right? Because the patients are asking the question, is it covered by insurance? And if it's not, they don't want it done. So like you went to dental school not to do what insurance will pay for, but rather to do the right thing for your patients. Again, your team went into dentistry to make a difference in people's life, not to do what insurance company tells you can and cannot do. So it creates this, pretty negative culture and, where you're working harder and harder. So to break through it, you need to take control of, your own destiny. And taking control of your own marketing and how you find and attract new patients is like, owning a real estate versus renting real estate, right? When you rent it, you really don't have any control. You can't add that extra room, you can't modify things, you can't do the things you want. Here, because you own it, you benefit from all of that. And also when you own something, there is appreciation. The business gets worth more and more and more. So a lot of times what happens with PPO practices when you go to sell it is it's worth less over time, then it's worth more. Why? Because your margins keep going down. On the other hand, a business you own and you control where, more and more patients are paying you full fee, you're making more and more profit every year, which means the business itself is worth more. So for both reasons, I think it's a good idea to take control of marketing and start owning marketing. I do think future belongs to practices that treat marketing as an opportunity, not as, well, I'll rent my marketing from PPO companies. And for the life of that patient, I'll keep giving the PPO firm a portion of what I produce in the form of adjustments. So I do think it's a good way to think about things. Now, I'm not saying, get off PPO plans. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying increase your options. If you're starting to attract more patients who are choosing you because they like you, because they trust you, and they're willing to pay full fees, that gives you more options. Perhaps you can get rid of that worst plan that's not treating you fairly, or that's, where you're losing money, right? But at least now you can start exercising those options.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that very comprehensive introduction to the topic that we're going to speak on, Naren. And the next question we keep hearing is people saying SEO is the key. Everyone has heard this three-letter word, but I don't really get it. Isn't it just about using the right keywords?
That's a great question. And let me just give you a 10,000-foot perspective. So what's happening right now is most people today, they, give you actual stats, use Google 12 billion times a day, Google search 12 billion times a day, and they use Google Maps 5 billion times a day. So today, Google was created in 1998, so almost 30 years ago. Today, anytime we need information, anytime we need answers, we just Google it, whether it's on our phone or on our desktop. So SEO is all about how do I show up on Google without paying for ad money, right? So without running an ad. So the question is, when people are finding you, again and again and again and again in your community through Google. Google controls around 90% of the market, if not higher, in US and Canada. Are you the one they're finding without ads? If you are, you're doing extremely well. If they're not, you're not. Now, the challenge is Google, like any other business, just like your insurance company, is here to make money, here to make a profit. So Google doesn't make any money when you show up for free, but they make a ton of money when you run ads. Like Google made close to $250 billion just from ads last year. Actually, it's more than that. So if I have a Google, I have no incentive to let you show up again and again. So what I do is I make it really, really hard. I'm talking about as Google, the company, for you to show up free. So what we have done over the last 18 years, and it has worked, is by focusing on dentistry and really, focusing on that niche with our 300-person team, we are able to help our clients show up tens of thousands of times for free for hundreds and hundreds of different keywords and phrases on page one of Google. So when you keep showing up again and again and again and again for everything you do, for all kinds of keywords related to each one of those things, you have an unfair advantage. So what happens is two things happen. One is the cost of a new patient goes down significantly. So let's do some math here. So if you were to get a patient from PPO and let's say you collect $1,000 from insurance, you probably are doing $1,600 worth of dentistry. So in 1 year, your marketing fee on that patient is $600, because that's the difference between your adjustment, between your usual and customary fee versus what you get paid. So you paid $600 to get that new patient on year one. Second year, same thing. Again, another $600. Third year, same thing. So the patient is there for 10 years. Your marketing cost for that single patient is $6,000. SEO happens to be the lowest cost. We have seen the cost of acquiring a new patient through SEO at $60. Now, Google ads are around $300 to $400. Of course, depends on the type of patients. At least 5 times more than SEO. And social media ads are even more expensive. So maybe double that. So maybe $600 on social media. And the reason ads seems to be more expensive than SEO is people don't trust you. When they click on an ad, they're clicking with doubt. So you will have a lot of no-shows. You have less people, converting, or that's called the conversion rate of all the people who are calling your office. So SEO is the best, but it is also the hardest. It takes a year. It takes around 600 hours up front. But once you get there, then it's easy to maintain. So once you are in the top 5% and you have brought down your cost of acquiring a new client to around $60, you can maintain it and build on it. Like a lot of our clients, they don't stop at 100 keywords. They continue to rank for more and more keywords. So in year 3, they're doing even better than they did in year 1. So it's a good way to really have a strong way to attract the right kind of patients. And the other thing is, because they're coming organically and because they're not asking the question, is it covered by insurance, they trust you and they're much more likely to accept treatment and your recommendations. So a lot of times they end up becoming lifelong patients. They refer their friends. And of course, they are the ones accepting these high value services.
Right. And Naren, why do some practices always show up first on Google, while others never seem to make it work no matter what they do?
I mean, it's life. Why do 1% of Americans control 70% of the wealth in America, right? Same thing applies here. And given that Google makes so much money from everybody else through ads, they keep that people who get free traffic as little as possible. So it's in their interest to keep that pool who get free traffic as tiny as possible. So most people have to give them tons of money to get that same, exposure. So it's just nature, the way the world works. But Google makes it really, really hard, and it's by design, right? Because if you are getting free traffic, you won't give them ad money. So we have, like I said, with the help of 14 teams, mastered this. And you are in that top 5% and you're getting 95% of the free traffic if you are ranking for 100 or more keywords. So if you are ranking for at least 100 keywords and phrases in the top 10 results, usually you end up having an unfair advantage. So it's like, I use the word, you crush your competition when it comes to Google and you dominate. It's not easy. It takes a year, but once you get there, then you have to maintain it. But good news is, having done this for 18 years, Google is a very honest and transparent company. They'll tell you the do's and the don'ts. It's hard to do it, but they'll give you it's almost like Stanford or any of these top universities will give you the playbook to get into Stanford. It's really, really hard to do it. But if you're willing to work hard and if you're willing to do this day in and day out, you can do it. So that's kind of what the key is you can do it, but you need that solid marketing team behind you. NAP, Google Lighthouse Co, Google CRUX, all these things. I don't want to get into it. I can spend like 3 hours talking about the secrets to success with Google SEO, but that's kind of what you need to master. So whether you or a team, they need to work on all these things day in and day out, and they need to monitor it. And how do you know? Are you ranking for 100 or more keywords on page one? And of course, don't stop there. Like, get to 150, 200, 300. And then, of course, that's going to also turn into phone calls. How many phone calls are you getting? So if you are paying attention to the key metrics and you're doing the things that Google wants you to do, you will do well. But it is a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. And that leads nicely to the next question, which is marketing feels like trial and error, right? We tried running ads, maybe spend time posting on social media. How do we actually know what's working?
Yeah, I want to tell a story here. I am full disclosure. I am from Sri Lanka. I came to Chicago for my undergrad. And the very first day I came in, I lost my passport. I was driving around the city of Chicago with the passport in the back pocket, and I dropped it. And then some good Samaritan found it and sent it to the school, and I was able to get it. So I don't know if it's serendipitous or whatever, but I had this belief that, if you do the right thing, somehow the universe will be on your side. So one of the things I have always made my life's work is to figure out what is that right thing to do is. And as far as marketing is concerned, it hasn't changed for thousands of years, even though today we use smartphones and, 500 years ago, we were like using a pencil and paper and whatnot, right? So marketing is about helping people find you, like you, and choose you. So that's what marketing is. So let's talk about finding. What does it mean? People today, like I said, 12 billion times a day, go to Google to look for what they need, like the information, answers, solutions. So when they're typing these things, are they finding you? Yes, you can run ads, but they won't trust ads as much, or you show up organically. So how well are you doing on that piece? Second is, do they like and trust you? What about your Google reviews? Are you getting at least 10 or more Google reviews a month? That's a good number to work on. What about your website? Does it have cases? Does it have, before and afters? Do you have a nice, simple welcome video? Why? To get people to like you. And then, so they find you, they like you, and then finally trust you. Trust you, like I said, is Google reviews, getting new reviews, love letter reviews, paragraph reviews. So to me, those never change. I mean, I know some people, say, oh, getting into medical school, is like a miracle. You can't do it. It's really impossible. But those who have been through, all of you who are listening, who are, doctors, it's not a miracle. There was a playbook. You had to study really hard. You have to get good grades. You have to do well in the entrance exam. You have to do well in the interview. I mean, you figured it out. You figured out the playbook and you followed it, and you are where you are. So same thing with marketing. So go back to that, right? Helping people find you, like you, and trust you. So focus on that. So for example, finding you, am I ranking for 100 or more keywords on page one, right? And is that number growing? You should be having a quarterly meeting with your marketing company, asking them to show the keywords that are ranking in the top 10 results. Which are those keywords? How many people are typing in? And is that number of keywords growing? Number two, on liking, look at your landing pages. Are the landing pages having more and more before and afters, more and more, videos to get people to like you? And on the trust you, are you getting 10 or more Google reviews every month? So measure this, right? If you keep measuring these three metrics on a quarterly, weekly, a monthly basis, and you're doing well, you're going to do extremely well. If you are not, you're going to go in circles. So, go back to the reason and go back to how you became a doctor and leverage the same methodology here, and you will do fine. Just focus on these three things and do better at it. So it is not about throwing darts and trying this and trying that. It is just help people find you, help people like you, help people trust you. That's it. And then stay on it. Hold people accountable around it.
Right. And then now this next question is very 2025, and then definitely a lot to do in 2026, which is AI, our favorite two-letter word. I keep hearing about AI changing how people search online. Is that really something we need to worry about as dentists?
That's a great question. AI is here to stay. The good news is, AI is going to make life so much easier for us. The bad news is, a lot of jobs will be gone. and it's just a matter of time. I think 20 years from now, we will be having flying cars that are robots that take us from place to place. We will have a lot of work that today is done by humans, done by robots and computers. It is what it is. I mean, like nobody wins by fighting the future, right? I mean, of course, I guess Unabomber tried, and I don't think he won. So, future is going to come whether we like it or not. It is what it is. We can't fight it. We can't resist it. It is just the way it is. So I say embrace AI. Now, I'll give you some quick updates as far as AI is concerned. Google is all in. Their stock literally went up $1 trillion in the last few months because people realized Google is the dominant player when it comes to AI. So right now, when you do a search, AI is baked into Google. So you'll see something called AI Overview. Now, Google doesn't use AI Overview for every search. For some searches, it's starting to show AI Overview. For example, you were to type in the cost of dental implants in Chicago, Google knows you don't want to go to 7 websites and do your own research and figure out how much does dental implants cost in Chicago. You want Google to go to 7 websites and do its research and tell you, okay, based on these 7 websites or 3 websites, I believe dental implants in Chicago would cost anywhere between this to this for these types of implants. This is what you should expect. So in other words, the person wants Google to do the research and give them the summary. So their AI overview shows up. And if you're one of those 3 websites who does what Google tells them, you're going to be one of the sources that Google is going to cite and say, hey, one of the places I got information from to figure out the cost is, your website, right? So you want to make sure you're, making sure you're ranking on AI overview. It's really, really important. Out of the 12 billion searches that are happening every day, more and more, hundreds of millions are becoming AI overview answers. So now Google is telling us new things we have to do today that we didn't have to worry about the pre-AI world. One is Google knows so much content is getting created through AI. ChatGPT can make up blah, blah, blah. It just makes it up. The problem with healthcare and making up content is if it's incorrect, somebody could die. So Google is like, no. We will never show answers based on what the AI made up. Rather, it has to have a source. It has to have a human, a doctor who has, whose website that we got that information from. That way we can say, well, we didn't say this. This is a board certified dentist who is Dr. Smith, and we got this information from his website and he said it, right? So you want to make sure that your credentials, the fact that you're board certified, the fact that you went to those universities are included. So EEAT, you may have heard me lecture on this. You need to pay attention to it. So one tip, if you're getting extra certifications or, getting CE, also try to get, some of that CE from universities or name brand, institutions. Why? Because Google trusts those institutions more than they trust Dr. Smith, who's doing a weekend course on XYZ, right? So make sure your credentials are mentioned, make sure it's included. Number 2, Google is looking at, no cheating, so no AI content, like have humans write it. So we use writers who write this and we penalize people who try to cheat and we fire them because, you can't do that if you want, Google to like us and trust us. So make sure you're paying attention to all these changes. CRUX is a huge thing, but also you want to show up both on Google and ChatGPT and Perplexity. So don't ignore the other platforms. So one of the things we are doing for our clients is we are seeing, are they showing up on ChatGPT? Are they showing up on Perplexity? If not, why not? And how do we fix it? The other challenge we are also running into is a lot of these platforms like ChatGPT have incorrect information. So not only do we want to show up, but we want to make sure they're showing the correct information. Why? Google has been at this game for like 20 years. So they have up to the minute information, millions of servers. Many of these other companies don't have the same amount of, brain power or compute power to get real-time information. So make sure that all the information about you on all the other platforms are also correct. So these are things we do. I really think just you have to lean in, you have to adapt. The world is changing. And, look at AI as a friend and make sure even in the AI world of search, you are dominating.
Right. And I think we're approaching, the last. If I want to make 2026 my best year yet, where do I start? And I think
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the link I would suggest is go to insuranceuntangledcom/MSM. I gave you generic tips on how to navigate 2025 and how to make 2026 the best year by leaning into AI, by building your own marketing, not being dependent on PPO plans, where the only question is it covered by insurance and you are getting hit with all the write-offs, but rather you are in control. You are attracting people who love you. So book that marketing strategy meeting. It's our gift to you, insuranceuntangledcom/MSM. We'll tell you how well you're doing when it comes to AI search. We'll tell you how well you're doing when it comes to SEO. We'll tell you how well you're doing in terms of reviews and all the other things that you need to pay attention to. And you get the report card and you get a plan. Take advantage of it. It's our gift to you. It's $900 value. And what you do with it then is up to you. But at least now you will know where you stand and what you need to do or what you can do. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the next presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Naren. And really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and very timely questions and answers, really. So really appreciate you for that, Naren. Right. I hope everyone is back after that break. I know it was a little bit short, but let us continue. To another very exciting segment. Here we go. Right. Before we get into the business panel, I would like to engage with our audience one more time, and I hope everyone's enjoying these polls as much as I do. We got a really interesting one for you next. Okay. Where is that one? Boop, boop, boop. Okay. This right here. What area of your insurance process would you automate first if you could? Because coming up in the next panel, we'll have a very much of an expert to speak upon this. So we got eligibility, verification, claims tracking, appeals, or documentation requests. What's your least favorite of these? Okay, verification is leading, but eligibility is catching up really quickly as well. Oh, now eligibility and verification are neck to neck. Seems that, and then claims tracking, appeals, documentation requests are trailing right behind there. Will we have a tiebreaker? And we do. Verification is at the forefront again. And I'm going to shut the poll in 3, 2, 1 and share these results real quickly. So our panelists, do take a look at this. This might be very interesting to speak upon as we move into the segment itself. A lot of our attendees do believe that the area of insurance process they would like to automate first, if they could, would be verification. But trailing right behind it is eligibility. So that's very interesting. Now, thank you again for engaging with us on that poll. And with that being said, let's get to know our wonderful panelists. So, first off, we have Alvin Utah. Some leaders fix problems, others build what the future needs. And Alvin is one of the rare few doing both. As the founder and CEO of Elite Dental Force, Alvin has spent his career bridging the gap between dental teams, patients, and insurance companies. His mission is simple but bold. Eliminate the chaos in billing through clarity, connection, and technology. With his AI-powered Edify platform, helping practices achieve 100% clean claims on first submission, Alvin is redefining what efficiency and financial confidence look like for modern dentistry. Alvin, I hope you're here after the break.
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, you're there. Yeah. And I hope you saw the poll results as well and could lean in on that as we move along.
I did. No, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm happy to be here. Very humbled to be amongst some great, brilliant minds. And so excited to get into this.
Absolutely. And next up, we have Dr. Curtis Brimley. Dr. Curtis Brimley's journey is one of discipline, curiosity, and unwavering excellence. After earning his DMD and MBA, then completing Ooh, okay. He, all right. Then completing both a general residency and a rigorous endodontic specialty program, he returned to Utah with a clear mission, elevating patient care through precision. Today, he's not only a highly respected endodontist, but also an attending doctor at the University of Utah, mentoring the next generation. His passion for research, technology, and clinical mastery makes him a guiding voice for providers who want to stand out without ever compromising quality. Now, I had a little hiccup in the middle of that because we just got an update that Dr. Kurt Brimley is running a bit late with a patient right now, but he will be joining us at the top of the hour. So hang tight. We will get Dr. Kurt online as soon as possible. Um, and then, of course, as uh, Benjamin had really graciously gave a wonderful introduction early on as well. I'm just following up on his lead. And we have Wendy Reifer. As Benjamin mentioned, in every successful practice, there's someone who understands people just as deeply as they understand systems. And that's the heart of Wendy's work. With a background in management, marketing, and executive coaching, plus decades inside dental practices, Wendy has helped countless teams align their goals, elevate their culture, and rediscover the joy behind the work. She believes leadership is not a title but a behavior, and her gift is helping practices unlock that mindset so growth becomes inevitable. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed being a part of all of the panelists and discussions beforehand and looking forward to this next segment.
Absolutely. Likewise, likewise. Now, my first question goes out to you, Alvin. What are the biggest pain points in dental offices today with billing and insurance, and how is Elite Dental Force addressing them?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So I think one of the biggest things that the industry is facing is data, right? Having the right data. I've done a lot of research around this, and when it comes to technology, your AI is only as good as its data. And if you don't have the right data, your AI is not going to adapt and do the things that you need it to do. But when it comes to the eligibility side or the insurance and the billing side, it's just that it's documentation, communication. I mean, the girls jump on here and I was like, man, I wish I was in that panel because, man, I have so many thoughts and like, I've done this for going on 5 years now. And I've done so much research and, digging into the insurance side, the CRM side. And it all comes down to the communication between all these, systems and throughout all these processes. And what Elite Dental Force is really doing is really concising it down to where it's simple. These things were supposed to actually be simple, not hard, but here we are. It's very complex. And the reason why is because the systems that we're using are so outdated. The systems that we're dealing with were built in the 1980s and 1990s, and it wasn't even built to scale. And so now we're adding all these new technologies and stuff, and you're not able to combat against the EDI, right? All these other systems that are in place. So Elite Dental Force, what we're doing is really understanding patterns, really understanding algorithms, within the previous, document or historical data, and learning from that. What makes a clean claim? What makes a claim denied, right? And what makes it, go through? So understanding rules is huge. And right now we're doing it manually, but we shouldn't be doing it manually. We should be saving time, money, and energy in focusing that in patient care. And so hopefully that answers the question.
That answers the question. And I would like to lean back onto the poll result, right? So the poll that we ran for, what area of your insurance process would you automate first if you could? And, leading it was verification, followed very closely by eligibility. Is this something that is in works with Elite Dental Force?
It is. Like I mentioned EDI, right? The EDI is always changing every single time. And that's a problem. If it's changing every single time, then how are we supposed to be updated with the latest information, the breakdowns, the history, the frequencies? All these things are important in order for us to make informative decisions. But those things are not given to us a lot of the times because there are certain rules that are put in place by the insurance companies, right? And then you have the clearinghouses that are also involved. And the clearinghouses, their job is to open up that highway of communication. But the problem is they speak a different language, and so does the insurance company. So when you have systems and processes that don't speak the same language, you have issues. And so what Elite Dental Force is doing is becoming that bridge to really have synchronized data and synchronized rules. So where you don't have to think twice because the AI is already understanding what that is. But again, this is what Elite Dental Force is doing is reviewing, analyzing the data to make sure that it's best practice.
Right. Thank you very much, Alvin. Really looking forward to it. And Wendy, my next question is over to you. What are the key qualities that help a dental practice stand out in today's competitive landscape?
Yeah, that's at the heart of it all, right? We can't do all this great work that we're capable of doing on the clinical side unless we can attract, the right attention and stand out. So we have a lot of information from working with our clients in general, but we also ask patients about this on an ongoing basis to see what makes a practice stand out from their point of view. And the practices that can show themselves to be organized in today's landscape, that can show that they're swift in meeting patient needs, that can show that they hear what patients are saying, meaning they have accuracy in intaking patient information, and they're providing back responses that are on par with what the patient is actually struggling with and trying to solve. But most importantly, I think patients are telling us that they're looking for honesty. They really want to have some authenticity in what it is that they're hearing. Now, that's an important distinction to make because it doesn't always have to be good news. Sometimes they have a condition they don't want. Sometimes they need treatment that they don't necessarily want to have to take on or pay for or whatever the case may be. But what they appreciate the most is that they're getting a straight answer and that they're leaning on some competence that they can see from this entire team. So now we're talking about the inner workings of how do we make a practice look like that to the patients. Well, it's to be like that in the first place. It's not an act. It's not something that you're putting forward. It's aligning those team initiatives and making sure that it shows all the way through to the patients that we already have and the ones we want to attract.
Okay, Wendy, can we get actionable here? What's one simple differentiator a practice can implement in the next 7 days?
I think that what we're looking for the most part, and this is thematic to the marketing efforts and the insurance efforts and all of that, one thing that we can really be looking at is it's a form of efficiency, but we call it capture, right? You have an opportunity to capture every single aspect of a patient encounter and do all of that work in as concise a manner as possible. That is best for the efficiency of the practice. It's also best for the patient. So if we're capturing all of their clinical details, all of their financial details, all of their scheduling details, and we've got a team that's trained with the right eye and the right ear for what makes for a successful patient engagement, you're knocking out your efficiency and your patient satisfaction all at the same time.
All right. All right. Thank you very much for that, Wendy. And we'll be moving back on to Alvin real quickly. Alvin, if you could give one piece of advice to practice owners or office managers about future-proofing their billing and insurance process, what would it be?
I would say keep documentation of everything that you do. That's huge. I talked about data, right? And with inefficient, I've looked at so many different types of data, and it's just scattered. And then when you go in to really understand what best practice is, you don't have any benchmarks to measure that because everything is different. And so if you can focus on your data in your office and capture as much best practice within your office, turn that into your SEO. I mean, your SOP. right? And then make changes as you're going, and then create best practice. I had done this many, many times with other companies that I consulted with. Was how can you define that this process is the right process for your culture or your people? You need to go in and actually use certain methodologies like DMAC, define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. If you can find ways to create best practice within your system, you're going to probably be better off. And then, especially if you're collecting the data correctly, then yeah, you'll have things to measure your KPIs off of.
Okay. Again, what should teams do if staff members resist change, which is,
I think
very common.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too also comes down to your actual vision as the doctor, right?
Mhm.
It starts from there because when you're hiring certain individuals to come into the office, those individuals have to meet what your vision looks like, and they have to come and execute the way that you have envisioned it. As an owner, I don't just select anybody. I get very technical and very strategic on who I bring on my team. But the ones that I bring on my team are the ones that really see the vision, that really believes it, right? That I don't have to go back in and train somebody on do it. They just take the initiative to do it because they want to the company or the vision to grow. So yeah, it all starts from um, the dentist taking the lead, right, and setting
Mhm.
expectations from the very beginning. So
Okay, I like this because this segues perfectly into Wendy's question that I got. Wendy, what mindset shifts do practice owners need to move from managing to truly leading their teams?
Yeah, I think that there's been, particularly in a post-COVID environment, a bit of a shift that there's some friction in between the team and employee pool and the ownership and leadership pool having to do with managing a business. And the practices that we find that are navigating this the best, rather than sitting in the rub and sitting in the friction point on that, they're just taking responsibility for it and they're focusing on expectation management more than ever. Dental teams work very hard. I don't know where the idea came from that they don't, but they care deeply about the patients. They work very, very hard. If you give them something to work hard at and it is well defined and it's very purposeful and intentional, you can shift that around very, very quickly. Now, it does take some staff development to do this. And rather than trying to take just one big swing at this when something's going wrong and tensions are high, we try and focus on doing things like this when it's not happening, when it's not an acute situation in the practice. I mean, small installments of expectation management and vision management and alignment and training and development with teams so that they can see it from the other person's point of view. For me personally, my story is I sat in chair A and flowed my work to chair B for a while in a practice, and I got a promotion, and I was pretty good in chair A, right? I mean, probably one of the best that ever did the chair A work by my own admission and everybody else's assessment. And then I went and sat in chair B, and I thought, I am so lucky because some of my own work is going to come my way and I'm going to process my own work, which of course is amazing, right? And it was terrible. I couldn't operate off of the information that I was getting, even from my own self, with the best of intentions, right? So until we do a little bit of this perspective and we move things around and we see what the next part of the practice needs to do their work well, we're going to run into these friction points. It's actually quite easy to straighten all of that out when you bring it to light and you go, oh, did you know that this person needs this thing? And they say, no, I didn't. I'd be happy to help my friend out. I want them to have a good experience. And more importantly, I want the patient to see this seamless approach to it, right? So that's a big part of things, is not agreeing that it has to be problematic and taking some simple and strategic steps to make it not problematic.
Okay, and if we could get a little bit of a deeper insight, what misconception do owners have about leadership?
I think they think it's very difficult to do. So when I ask doctors about their leadership of their team, they say, I lead by example, right? And that's a very, very big ask. It's not that it's not effective, it just can't be the only thing that's happening, right? And so when doctors are trying to lead by example, there's a big expectation that their teams are going to infer what they mean by every action that they're taking and extrapolate and do things in kind with that doctor's approach to things. So sometimes it takes slowing down and being a little more intentional and being a little bit more clear. And that part is not the difficult part. It truly isn't, right? And so we like to change hearts and minds that this leadership aspect is difficult, it's time consuming, it's going to take forever, it's going to get limited results, that kind of thing. We try and make that part of things easy for our practices, and it's one of the most appreciated parts of how they can do this type of work.
Okay. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that answer. Right, and I see Dr. Brimley is here with us. Fantastic. Hope you had a good experience there, doctor.
Yeah, everything's great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on.
Absolutely. I love it. I mean, this is real life.
Yes, it is.
Right. Before we get into your question, I would like to launch another poll, just, having a quick pulse check. Which leadership areas do you want to strengthen the most? This will help us align our next few questions and how we answer them as well. So I'm launching it right now. We'll have it for a minute real quickly. The answers goes as follows: accountability, communication, efficiency, culture, or vision clarity. Let's see what we have to say. Oh, wow. This is a varying. I really I enjoy looking at polls in real time because they vary so rapidly and give a great example of like the sample and the problems that we are facing as attendees here. Okay, communication seems to be leading the charge with accountability, efficiency, and vision clarity following up. Let's see if that changes within the next 10 seconds. Okay. It just doubled down. Yep. Okay, I'm going to end the poll right now and share the results. Right, as we can see, the main leadership area that our attendees want to strengthen the most is communication. And I feel that's very poignant. You are here and you are looking forward to improving this. And I feel, you're in the right place. And I hope our panelists take this into consideration and really lean in. Of course, accountability and efficiency and also vision clarity are right behind there. So thank you very much for engaging on the poll once again to our attendees and participants. Dr. Brimley, what's one key way dentists can stay ahead while maintaining clinical excellence?
My personal feeling on that is they can, it's interesting there, Wendy was talking about leadership, because the best thing they can do is learn how to delegate. A true leader is someone who empowers others to lead. And if you're trying to focus on your clinical skills and your clinical qualities, you need to have a team that steps up and becomes leaders amongst themselves. I can give a really, really perfect example. Our clinic has focused on leadership and trying to get the doctors focused on clinical care for several years now. And we've worked into a system where our office functions and runs by the front desk and the assistants. And I don't do anything other than what my assistants tell me to do. So on any given day, I get in, and the first time anybody even asks me a question or tells me to do anything, it's come see, Miss Jones in chair 2 because she's ready to go. And that's how the day goes throughout the whole day. And that's not easy. it takes a lot of effort. So I love the stuff that Wendy was talking about, because that work that you put into that will come back around. It does take time. It does take effort. It takes meetings. It takes, setting out goals and visions. But once you arrive to that point, you get to an area where, like, literally a doctor can focus just on being a clinician. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Okay. And I mean, this requires a lot of communication throughout the whole team, right? How was that process like for you?
So when we initially started this, like I say, it's been several years. We initially started it 5 years ago, and it was by taking the core people in the in our team and the doctors, and we went to a weekend leadership like seminar together, and that's where it started. And then it's continued from then by, we read a book a month, and it's always a leadership book. John Carpenter is writes a lot of books on that are very simple reads. They take maybe a couple hours, and once a month we discuss what we've read and how to apply it in the clinic. Um, we went from having no huddles to once a week to now it's a daily thing, and it's down to a really well tuned, refined 10 minutes where we go over the schedule and make sure everybody understands what's going to happen that day. And again, it takes a lot of work to get there, but man, once it gets there, it is amazing the flow that you can have as a team.
Right. I'm just curious, what was that thing that you got out of that leadership seminar that started this whole thing?
Yeah, the number one thing was doctors need to learn to let go of control. And it's hard, right? Because we're practice owners and we feel like that's our blood, sweat, and tears, and it's our baby, and we need to like run this ship the way we want it run. And that's natural, right? When you put so much time and effort into establishing a practice. But that is the number one thing that was taught to us, and that we literally set out. We said, okay, we're going to do this, and it does involve a lot of things that you wouldn't even think of, right? Making sure and I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but making sure you really love and care about the people you work with. When we started down this road, we actually had a doctor in our group, and he described it all as kumbaya BS, right? And ironically, flash forward to about 4 years after that, we have three locations, but the doctor that had the kumbaya problem was at a different location. And in the meeting, they said, well, Kurt, would you stand up because your EBITDA has increased 150% last year? And would you stand up and tell us how you did that? And I said, well, I'll tell you how, and everybody in this room knows what I'm talking about. And you can call it kumbaya BS, or you can call it kumbaya beauty. And that beauty is what I was talking about, basically caring and quite honestly loving and being concerned about the people that you work with. And once they understand that you do care on a personal level, they feel a little more like you do about the practice. They take a little more pride in the practice. They take a little more pride in their job, and they're more willing to do the things that make a good practice great. Take care of the patients with a better attitude, stay late without, being unhappy or griping, because they start to take on that feeling of ownership and really pride, feeling good about what you're doing, and also feeling empowered and trusted that they can make decisions and can do things that are going to make the practice run better.
Right. I mean, thank you very much for that wonderful answer, Dr. Brimley. Delana had sent us a little message saying that being knowledgeable is key, and that communication and following through seems to be their super tool. That's pretty cool to hear, Delana. Um, Moving back to you, Alvin. Um, Here we go. So how does how does bridging the communication gap between dental teams, patients, and insurance companies translate into better outcomes for practices?
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's actually our mission. Our mission is to bridge the communication gap between dental office staff members, insurance companies, and patients. Right? There's a huge misconnection, right? And how I like to frame it is that even if you had clear communication within your office, you're still having to communicate with the insurance companies. You're still having to communicate with the patient, right? But it all starts from your practice. If you guys can communicate in a way where there's transparency, there's clarity, then everything else should be done in, they call it the 5S, right, in Lean Six Sigma, to where you can start documenting information like Ben was talking about earlier, right? You can use these things for evidence to say, hey, we've been following your insurance rules. What's going on? What's up with that? Right. But the problem is we don't have any systems that documents anything. Right. And if you do, it's all in paper or it's all in spreadsheets but we have to kind of propel to the next level and say, how do we really communicate in a way where
Alvin, I apologize. I accidentally muted you.
can you hear me now?
Yes. My apologies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Communication is huge. And I feel like I said earlier, you may have the communication within your team, but then you have to face the communication issues with the insurance companies. And then you have to face that communication with the clearinghouses. So there's so many hands being put into the pot. Like Matalena was talking about earlier, you can do everything right, but then when it goes into the clearinghouse, well, now they have their own way of doing things. And then when it gets to the insurance companies, well, now it's another denied. And I think that was the number one thing that we saw on this, right, was denial for claims.
Yeah.
And so I have stats and data on this, right? A lot of the times we're wasting time, money, and energy in redoing the claims because we don't understand the claims, right? We don't understand the rules. We don't know the CDT codes, right? Or the ICD-10 codes, right? For that matter. But imagine having everything using AI in a way where it's checking things off within the insurance side, within the dental side, and then also within the clearinghouse side. But it goes back to what I was talking about, inefficient data, right? That's out there. There's three models going on right now, and none of them speak to each other, and that's a huge problem. And that's what Elite Dental Force is here to do.
Okay. How can we get actionable on this, right? Like, I mean, I know Elite Dental Force does it, but for our practice owners listening in, what's probably one communication script or teams can adopt immediately?
So this is my finding, right? And I think everyone else can probably agree. You have your marketing that brings your patients in, right? And then you bring your patient and you go through the whole thing. But where you miss it is within the patient coordinator, not knowing how to close the actual procedure or the actual treatment, right? Yeah. And so start training, right? Those treatment coordinators, right, on how to really close. Use the right verbiage. I'll give you guys one real quick, right? The three F's: feel, felt, and found, right? Hey, Mr. Customer, we totally understand how you feel, right? Others have felt the same way, but what we found, right, is this. Now you're actually justifying, like, this is important to you, right? Because we care about your actual oral health. So I would say, communicate that in a way where the patient doesn't feel like, and then I also, I geeked out because I was like, oh, guys, the marketing part, because we also have something for the marketing part. Make marketing part of your message right? When you're actually, your culture. So bring your culture of what you're doing and market that. So when the patient comes in, they already understand your culture. They understand how you guys operate. But a lot of the times we're marketing for services rather than marketing for education, if that makes sense. So this is where a lot of like the SEO and all these other things, new technologies are coming into place.
Absolutely.
To really look at human behavior. So by the time they come into the seat, you know what type of personality this person is
Right.
because you've done it the right way. Right. So
Right.
again, these are just my things and my thoughts, but I'm excited for what Elite Dental Force is going to be able to do for, the industry.
So are we. So are we. Thank you very much, Alvin. Dr. Brimley, back to you. Can we get to know what innovations in endodontics are helping specialists deliver better patient outcomes?
Yeah, I think that this is a really interesting time in endodontics to talk about this. And the number one thing that's going on in endodontics right now is irrigant activation. And as far as patient outcomes, the number one thing you can do is invest in either equipment or techniques that are going to increase your irrigant activation. For example, if right now you're doing what a lot of people call horse and buggy irrigation, which is, placing irrigants in the canal and then activating them with a file and moving the file up and down. Then your next step is an ultrasonic activator or even a subsonic activator. If you're already using an ultrasonic activator, your next step up is cavitational activation, which typically involves either a laser or gentle wave technology. I just came back from a conference in San Diego. There's a brand new cavitational irrigant activator that's called ODNI, which is creating cavitation actually inside the canal of the tooth. So my advice as far as patient outcomes is whatever you're doing for your irrigant activation, take it to the next level. If it's files, go to ultrasonic. If ultrasonic, go to cavitation. There are dentists that are using gentle wave, which is a really, really great adjunct to activate your irrigants and to clean canals. Getting that canal clean is what not only increases your success rate, but decreases patient post-op problems. So whatever, make a goal of whatever it is you're using, step up one notch.
Okay, superb. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Brimley. Wendy, moving on to you. How can practices balance business efficiency with delivering a great patient experience?
Yeah, well, I think let's talk about the poll result as the backbone of the answer to that question, right? So
Absolutely.
I don't think I've ever taken on a client that hasn't said that their number one improvement goal has something to do with communication in the office. And on the one hand, that's great news. It shows that they're invested in improving that communication process all throughout the different parts of the practice. On the other hand, we sometimes find that it's a bit of a kitchen sink category, right? People will take things that are not necessarily communication and call them oversimplified a communication process. So we want to take the time in aligning these goals in efficiencies to break down what do you really mean by communication? Is it expectation management? Is it problem solving? Is it initiative? What is it that we're trying to address with the communication process? Not all of it is communication. And as Dr. Brimley said, this can take a minute to do. We front load this process, right? And we make sure that we get somebody thoroughly through this process before we start solving the proposed problems and even the solutions, right? So when it comes to alignment, as you stimulate not only the right thing, but the communication about the right thing, a lot of these things take care of themselves. When you have the right people in the right practice and they're pointed at the right kind of patient, you're not as far misaligned as you might think you are. We might just be going about it the wrong way. And it takes a little while to wiggle into that spot. And some of the answers at first do not sound appealing. Doctor mentioned things like the meetings that they have. If I tell my clients I want them to have more meetings, they might jump out the window. That is not the answer that they want to hear. But when we really drill down on that, we find that they don't want to have more of the inefficient, non-productive, difficult meetings that they're already having. When we show them what a real communication set looks like and what the outcomes of that are, they're more gung-ho than I could ever be about getting that started and working for the practice. So some of it comes down to the vocabulary and some of it comes down to what you tackle first, but I think it's not as hard to do as people think that it is sometimes. And that's encouraging. And we like to keep it hopeful for people along that front, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I really appreciate how you took that poll result and really broke it down to a science and data that you also have from your side, right? I was just wondering, how do teams maintain experience during periods of high volume or stress, which is kind of like nowadays, it's getting there.
Yeah, so if I think you're talking about consistency, is that right? Like when
Yes,
the patient
absolutely.
volume goes up, the difficulty or complexity goes up, how do you yeah, there's no shortcut to that, right? And what we do is we try and build the right systems and provide the right training so that every instance of taking care of a patient or another team member or part of the practice is a practical drilling, role playing type of thing. It becomes habitual at that point. And it is the tool that you reach for, even in times of those higher volume or those higher stress situations. So doctors know they don't train until they can do it right once, they train until they can't do it wrong, right? And we understand that we don't get to shut down the practice and just train on a full-time basis for 6 months until we can't do it wrong, right? But if you really help your team by building the right systems and providing the right perspective and support, then they are doing thousands of encounters of this thing. And as an on-the-job training format, they are getting the right outcomes and they are forming those habits and reaching for that way of doing things. If I'm answering the question.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for that, Wendy. Before we move on to the next question, I have a little question to our audience. So just use the chat right now and like tell us what do you most want your practice to be known for in 2026? That's what do you most want your practice to be known for in 2026? Let this be the moment where this change happens. Either you make the decision or you reinforce it. We'd love to see your answers here. We'll just take 30 seconds to see what everyone has got going on. And I know this has been a bit of a wonderful integrity and transparency. Okay.
Don, I have something to add while the people are putting in their
Please do.
comments.
Go ahead,
Both
Dr. Brinley.
Alvin and Wendy, what they talked about as far as this communication goes, ties so indirectly to the environment in your office and that whole. Again, I hate to say it, but going back to loving and caring about your teammates and as well as your patients, because if an example is like if a patient calls in and they have a problem or they're angry or upset and the front desk takes that, but they in their head think, oh, I'm not going to talk to Dr. Brimley. He doesn't like me or he doesn't care about me. And they're going to be like, they're more likely to just be like, well, I wonder if I can just like bury this problem myself, Whereas if there's that feeling of trust and love, then they're going to be like, okay, oh, well, there's this problem and I can go to Dr. Brimley because he trusts me to handle it and he cares about me. And so like everything that like Wendy and Alvin talked about happens in an office where there is that environment that everybody feels like they can say what needs to be said, including in my office, including an assistant saying, oh, don't you think that this might be a good idea right now? Do you want to use that file instead of that file? And hey, that's a great idea. And it takes time to get to the point where an assistant feels comfortable telling a doctor, hey, usually when you do this, this works. Do you want to try that? Or anything, that stuff only happens when you created an environment that can happen in.
I really appreciate you pitching in, Dr. Brimley. Yeah,
Can I add
absolutely.
also to that? Like,
Yes,
and
please,
I think
Alvin. Go ahead.
Dr. Brimley like hit it right on the nail on this, right? Like morale is huge. And I think right now, so the three biggest pain points in the industry is the turnover rate for employees, right? Is the number one. And then number two is the low reimbursement rates from insurance companies, right? And then number three is overhead costs. But number one sticks out, right? And the reason why is because people are being burnt out, right? And then at the same time, we're not giving them the platform to grow. If we just like Dr. Brimley was saying, if we create this culture of empowerment, right, giving people the ability to grow, um, you'll see miracles happening within your own organizations, within your offices, wherever you're going to be at, right? But I think we're so caught up in titles, right? That a lot of the times it, we don't excel because we're like, oh, that's not my space, right? But it should be your space. You should be able to have, as a team, have a voice in things of that nature. But I saw in here transparency, I think that's
Uh,
huge. And so, but I wanted just to add that.
no,
Could I
really
make a
appreciate it.
comment as well?
Of course, you can.
Yeah, I think that what ends up happening is in the absence of what these two gentlemen are talking about, the typical default action that people take both on the management side, on the team side, on the patient side is to soft pedal. They do a little bit less just so that it doesn't create that friction or just so that it doesn't become problematic or, create that concern or be an over inspection of what the other person said or is thinking or whatever the case may be. The direct nature of what is required to have the correct expectation management and to estimate properly what it's going to take to get the result that you're looking for is kind of an everything concept when it comes to this stuff. So I was watching as you asked the question what people were saying back having to do with the care and the compassion and all of that. I think we have to take a look at the word kindness and really see what kindness is made up of. And of course, it has to have the supportive part to it, right? Where a person is heard and understood and accommodated and all of those things. But it also has to be authentic. It has to be what's really in play and in a very, I guess I'll use the word sane way. You have to take up what is actually going on, right? And some of the mind bending things that do cause friction in management and amongst teams are from the unsaid things or the misunderstood things, not necessarily from people's intentions at large, right? And so I think continuing to break it down, whatever your answer to that survey question was, I would submit to you that one of the ways of going about it is with that authenticity, right? Being real about what's actually going on and also being real about what it's going to take to handle that problem. So rather than saying, we got this outcome with this patient, it's the last patient or the next patient, what are we going to do about that? Really realizing, okay, it's not the only time that happens. It's not the only time that's going to happen. Let's solve this patient, obviously. Let's come to a greater solution for when this comes up. But then we have to remain dedicated to that, right? We have to continue taking a few steps back and saying, okay, this is the way we've always done it, but how do you really want it to be, right? And go seeking a solution that is in line with how you want it to be, not just what you think you have to settle for. There are more solutions than ever now for us to be able to come to an optimum way of doing things, an ideal way of doing things. It's more likely that it's because we haven't made the decision to do that than we can't find a resource to make it happen the way we want to, right? And so I think this comes down to getting help, right? There are a lot of experts out there. Rather than getting yourself into a set of repetitive trial and error or grinding on an inappropriate thing that is not necessarily getting traction, and you know it, right? Your team knows it, you know it. That's becoming frustrating. We just don't have time to deal with it, right? Sometimes you have to stop. And you have to look for a different approach to that thing. And that takes courage, particularly in a busy practice. So we just want to support when people have those bigger goals, don't chop them down just because you don't think you can do them. It takes a little time, it takes a little dedication, but that's a great entry point to achieving what you want to for the new year.
I really like that, Wendy. And Alvin, as well as Dr. Brimley. Thank you so much for joining in on that, because there was a lot of talk that was really important to the whole topic that we're discussing here, as well as some of the answers, as well as, like Alvin said, morale being the number one problem with the industry right now, as well as with regards to some of the questions our registrants are even asking, what are some of the jobs that are non-clinical? Like I have, done a few panels where this question has been asked a bunch. Just to get an idea of like what's available out there, just because of this massive burnout that, happens in dentistry, because it's such a high stress, high demanding job. And also, with that being said, I just wanted to reiterate some of the wonderful answers we got for what do you most want your practice to be known for in 2026? A person has said integrity and transparency. Another has says closer connections and communications. And then thirdly, compassionate and caring. Really appreciate y'all sending these answers to us. And then, of course, I see a hand raised up by Dr. Brimley over there.
I was just to kind of like prove what Alvin and Wendy are saying. Right here in hands reach, just in arm's reach on my desk, I have the last like 4 books that we've read as a team. This is all about exactly what Wendy was talking about, making people feel confident that they can communicate well. And it goes back into what Alvin was talking about, because since we incorporated a flow, what we refer to it as a flow mindset, but that entails everything that we were talking about, how to create an environment where employees feel empowered and can take leadership positions. Since we've done that, the perfect proof of how that affects your practice was Alvin's number one problem of turnover. We embarked on this journey, like I said, about 5 years ago, a little more than 5 years ago, but we haven't had a single turnover in my office, not from the most, recently hired lowly assistant. I mean that as a joke, or the front person who all they do is answer the phone or whatever for 3 years now. And so you really do see the effort that gets put into this pay off in the ways that Alvin and Wendy are talking about.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for, sharing your insights there, Dr. Brimley. I'm sure a lot of practice owners really wish to be in a state very close to where you're at. And we really appreciate you sharing the steps that it took to get there.
Impressive. Absolutely. This turnover thing is invasive in the field. And when we break it down and find out what's contributing to it, it's both encouraging and very, very saddening, because you can address your turnover rate. You can address your retention rate. You can address your hiring practices and the outcomes that you get there. And it's not always what you think it'll take to get you there. It is some hard work, but you can see on the other side of it that it could have been that way all along, or it can be that way moving forward. And so that's the bright side of the whole thing. It's not that it's so sophisticated, it's that it just has to be the right thing.
I love this. Alvin, so I got a question for you. We'll be moving to one of the first things that one of our first commenters actually mentioned way, way earlier in the summit. And that's about how AI is going to reshape the financial health of dental practices, right? How is that going to look like? So looking ahead, how do you see AI reshaping the financial health of dental practices over the next 3 to 5 years?
So I'm going to be very blunt about this, right? We're looking at 2 to 3 years, right? Before we can even get a 1% lift when it comes to the insurance and billing side of it. And the reason why I say that is because, again, it's really trying to understand, because data is important, right? Very, very important for AI. And if you don't have the right data and the right infrastructure for whatever software that you're using, when you build around that, your software is going to collapse. We see it. I mean, look at all the chats, right, on Facebook. with all the office managers, they talk about it, right? They're like, oh, what's going on with that? Or what's going on with this and that, right? Sorry, I'm not going to name any names, but it just shows, right, that we're not there yet, right? It's going to still take some time. But in the meantime, we can at least do our due diligence by collecting best practice data, right? And then when the time comes, then we can utilize AI the way the AI should be utilized. Now, there are certain other things like X-rays. I mean, they've been able to tap into that because they have a little bit better measurements, right, or a little bit better data. But if you look at insurance, it's all over the place. That's why it's one of the biggest issues that we're running into right now, because documentation may be different from this office and this office. Everybody has different dynamics of how they run their offices, and that becomes a challenge, right, for DSOs or for anyone. Metrics are not there. But I think if we just do our due diligence, find what works for you, right, and collect that data when it's time, when AI gets to a certain point, you're going to be able to actually just take all that data, throw it into the AI, and the AI is going to be able to do exactly what you want it to do. But like I mentioned earlier, your AI is only as good as its data. And yeah, so, but again, there are some uplifts to certain areas, but for insurance for right now, that's still a work in progress. I have been able to figure out how to overcome this. But that can be a different conversation because then I'd be giving away my secret sauce.
That might be a completely different conversation, but yeah,
correct. Yeah.
When are you available this Sunday?
Yeah, well, like right now, Elite Dental Force and how we're approaching this is, and for those that are on here too, what we're looking for is individuals that have years of experience, that have different dynamics of how things have been done, right? One of the things that we found too is that once the knowledge leaves your office, well, now your office is struggling because that knowledge just left, right? Which causes, more issues and whatnot. But what we're doing is we're actually trying to capture best practice, put it into an actual database, right? To when, and this will be more kind of like a phase 4, to when you have to take maternity leave or you have to take sick leave, your office doesn't have to take a hit for it. Because by then you will be in a process where you have best practice data that can automatically be put onto autopilot. And so imagine that, right? What the future can hold if you do things correctly from the beginning. That's why our approach is a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. And too many systems that are out there are just reactive approaches. We have to fix it from the very beginning before it gets into AR. And so that's exactly what Elite Dental Force is doing.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Alvin. Wendy, how do you help clients align their personal goals with their business vision?
I think that's a matter of taking it up to a high enough level to start that conversation in the first place, because sometimes they're the same thing. It doesn't always seem like it, but once you start pulling these things apart, personal goals, business goals, those are best navigated when they do align to some degree. And most often they do, right? If you ask people about that in a bigger scale, they say they want to help other people, or they want to make an impact, or they want to solve problems, or they want to grow, or they want to help other people grow, right? And there's an application for that in a personal aspect and also within a practice environment. So one of the things that we work very hard at is naming that in the first place, fully, completely, so that it's well understood, so that it can be repeated and disseminated throughout different parts of life, but also kind of creating a pathway so that it makes it easier for people to do a good assessment of where are we now, where do we want to go. That takes some brutal honesty sometimes, right? And then really taking a look at how do we incrementalize it. You're not going to do all of that in one leap. If you could, you would have already done it. So what is the next step in the right direction towards that thing? How do you measure that it's workable? How do you reroute when it isn't? And that's very, very rewarding work. And what makes it rewarding is not how instantly, humongously different things are. It's the confidence that comes from, oh, if I can do that here, that means I can do that anywhere, right? And taking those steps and doing those things, it is quite rewarding. That then trickles down from leadership into teams. And the teams, again, with the right delegation and empowerment and getting the opportunity to be the expert that they are in the chair that they sit in and how they help contribute to the patient care. They're helping to develop and problem solve as well. So achieving goals, it happens in very small pieces, but once you shine a light on that and get everybody aligned on that, it's the best part, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this will be the last question I'll have for this panel, and that'll be for you, Dr. Brimley. So, in your view, what makes a patient experience truly exceptional?
I think that above all, patients want to know that they're cared about and cared for. And that starts from the second they walk in the door. It's not by any means just how the doctor, what procedure, how he does his procedure, and whether he's careful or not. It starts from the second they walk in the door, and everybody in the office needs to know that and to treat that patient with love and empathy, because a lot of times these patients, well, in my practice, a lot of times they're in pain and have been in pain for days. So their attitude might not be the best, and they might walk in kind of angry that they're there. And, who knows what else has happened on the way to the visit or in the days before the visit. Maybe they had a flat tire, or maybe they have some family problems. And so right off the bat, from the second they get in, they need to know that they're cared about, and that their situation matters. And that carries through all the way through any treatment, and how assistants bring the patient back, make sure that they're comfortable, make sure they don't have a need that they're afraid to talk about. And, maybe they're thirsty, they need a drink of water, or maybe just anything that the patient might need. And when you focus that much on caring about the patient, that's when you have truly great patient experiences. And so, I guess I would just sum it up by saying it's loving and caring your patients, and making sure they know that it's not something that, like, oh, we do it by, because we have this set of things we follow or something. No, it's because we really care, and we make sure that you put yourself in their shoes, and you do whatever you can to empathize and to treat them with the way you would want to be treated, right?
Right. And with that, that's a really nice point to end on. But I would like to hear a key takeaway from our panelists with regards to our discussion that we just had. How about we start with you, Alvin? What's your one key takeaway from this?
So I think the one key takeaway for me is that there's still problems that are occurring, right? And so that's exciting for me, because I'm a problem solver. I love solving problems. But I think more importantly, Dr. Brimley touched on this, right? Well, one thing I remember this saying, it was like, don't let a problem be more important than somebody to be loved, right? And so it's like, the problems will always come, but just act of kindness is hard sometimes for us as human beings to express. So if we can do that, right, for each other, for our patients, for whoever that's in the industry, I think we'll thrive a little bit, further, or go a little bit further, and we'll find success together. And so, and I think it's all about that, coming together and fighting for a good cause, for ourselves, for the patients, and for those that have put a lot of effort in what they do.
Wonderful. Wendy?
Yeah, listening to the earlier conversations and being among this great company today, there are a lot of notes here that have to do with growing and showing our competence, right? Making that available to the teams that are trusting us, the patients that are trusting us. And it turns into the greatest kindness that it can be for us to really make sure that we know what we're doing and how to do it in the best way possible, offer that up, and make it easy for people to take the help that's being given. I think the field needs a lot more of that. And I think there are a lot of well-intentioned people who could use the support with that kind of an initiative in a practice setting. So it's wonderful work to do at ePractice Manager because we help people in this field, and they turn around and help so many other people in kind, and it has that ripple effect to it. So very, very nice to see that all throughout today's discussion.
Wonderful. And then last but not least, Dr. Brimley, your key takeaway.
I'll tell you, it's fairly ironic that we ended up talking about leadership and culture, and because I was initially invited on this panel because for about the last 10 years in Utah, I've been running what's known as an independent practitioner organization, and I think Ben talked about that. And
He did.
I'll briefly just say an independent practitioner association is literally the only legal way that dentists can come together and negotiate fee services. That being said, I'm not going to go into it because I think what we talked about today is more important. I will say if you have interest in independent practitioner organization, I will make sure Don has my contact information. I would be more than happy to speak to anybody about what an IPA is, how it functions, how you can join one. And with that, I will say I'm pleasantly surprised that this is what the topic was, because I think that Wendy and Alvin have extremely valuable points that they're making, and the time and effort put into creating an environment where your team functions, again, going back to what we refer to as flow, but getting an environment, getting an office to run under those conditions is the most rewarding, most beneficial thing that I think that that you can do as a practice owner.
Wonderful. Dr. Brimley, you can share your email address right here on the chat if anyone is interested in getting in touch with you directly. And with that being said, one last poll for the road. What are you most likely to take action on after today? I know it's been a long session, and I really appreciate y'all hanging tight. The answers we got here: insurance workflows, team leadership, billing processes, marketing strategy, and patient experience. Let's see what we got. Okay. We got team leadership. Okay, there we go. I love these polls. Team leadership is in the front runner right now with insurance workflows, billing processes, marketing strategy, patient experiences, all leading up equally in the back. Okay, team leadership. Wow. Okay, we got patient experience moving a bit forward. Wow. We're just going to hang back for 10 seconds and see if this changes.
So exciting.
It is. I mean, this is my favorite part, looking at the polls. Right. With that being said, we have the results. I'll share it with everyone. And the most likely action our practice owners and our attendees, participants will take after today will be about team leadership. And I think that's very transformative. And then trailing behind it is patient experience. Today, we talked about, insurance, we talked about billing, we talked about marketing, and then, of course, we talked about leadership. And the key takeaway, I mean, I think this is great, and I really appreciate everyone joining in. I'm just going to share my screen one last time real quickly. And yeah, here we go. Home current slide. Right. with that being said, thank you to all our incredible speakers here this evening. Well, we're getting into the evening this afternoon. And thank you to everyone who joined us live for the Insurance Untangled Breaking Boundaries in 2026. A few important notes. A link to the CE form is in the Zoom chat, as well as it'll pop up as a new tab. As you exit the summit, please fill it out as soon as possible. CE certificates will be emailed to you within 2 weeks. And also there will be a short survey on how we did. Answering that will help us make these products and events much more better for y'all, the community. And then as we wrap up, remember, if you want a clear action plan for 2026, a growth action plan, you can still book a free marketing strategy meeting with Equa Marketing. The link is in the chat one last time. It's one of the most valuable steps you could take after today's session. And on behalf of the team at Insurance Untangled and our panelists, thank you all for being here and investing in your growth. Have a wonderful weekend.